On the worst night of winter, a former soldier stopped his truck in a Montana blizzard and found a barefoot child bleeding in the snow. What he didn't know was that saving her life would pull him into a conspiracy worth billions and make him a target. This is the story of Caleb Hayes, the little girl who whispered a warning through frozen lips, and the mother who would do anything to bury the truth. Before we begin, I invite you to stay with me until the very end of this story. If it moves you, hit that like button and drop a comment telling me what city you're watching from. I love seeing how far these stories travel. Now let's go back to that night when everything changed. The headlights barely cut through the white. Caleb Hayes hunched forward over the steering wheel of his F-150, squinting into a wall of snow that seemed determined to erase the world. The windshield wipers beat a losing rhythm against the blizzard. He'd driven this stretch of Montana highway 100 times, maybe more, but tonight it felt foreign, hostile. The kind of night that turned familiar roads into mazes and mazes into graves. He should have stayed in town. Should have waited it out at the diner with another cup of bad coffee and the late shift waitress who always asked about Mason. But his son was home with Mrs. Chen next door, and the sitter charged by the hour. Caleb was already 2 days behind on the water bill, so he'd climbed into the truck at 9 p.m. and pointed it toward home, betting his life against the storm. Stupid. His old drill sergeant would have called it stupid, and the sergeant would have been right. The radio crackled with static and fragments of an emergency broadcast. Highway 87 closed at mile marker. Visibility 0. Travelers advised. Then nothing but white noise and wind. Caleb reached for the dial to shut it off when something moved in the road ahead. At first he thought it was a deer. They were always jumping out in weather like this, panicked and blind. His foot hovered over the brake, but the shape didn't move like a deer. It stood still, small, upright. What the hell? He hit the brakes harder than he meant to. The truck fishtailed, back end swinging wide. For a sick moment, the world tilted, and Caleb thought he was going into the ditch. Then the tires caught, and the truck shuddered to a stop, headlights blazing straight ahead. There was a child in the road, a little girl. She stood in the center of the lane, maybe 20 feet in front of his bumper, wearing what looked like a nightgown. White or pale blue. Hard to tell in the snow. Her arms hung at her sides. One hand clutched something dark against her chest. She wasn't moving, wasn't running, just standing there like she'd been carved out of ice. Caleb's brain stuttered. This wasn't real. Couldn't be real. Kids didn't just appear in the middle of nowhere during a blizzard. But there she was, and his headlights showed him details he didn't want to see. Bare feet, thin fabric plastered to her small body. Hair whipping in the wind. He threw the truck into park and shoved open the door. The cold hit him like a fist. Wind screaming, snow driving sideways into his face. He left the engine running and stumbled forward, boots crunching through 6 inches of fresh powder. "Hey!" His voice barely carried. "Hey, kid!" She turned her head toward him, slow, mechanical. Her face was bone white, lips already going purple. She didn't say anything, didn't cry. That scared him more than anything else. Caleb closed the distance in 4 strides and dropped to one knee in front of her. Up close, she looked even worse. Maybe 6 years old, 7 at most. Soaked through. Shaking so hard her teeth chattered like dice in a cup. Her feet were bleeding, leaving dark smears in the snow. Jesus Christ. The words came out before he could stop them. "Where did you come from?" She stared at him. Her eyes were huge and dark and somewhere far away. "Can you hear me?" He stripped off his coat, heavy canvas lined with fleece, and wrapped it around her shoulders. It swallowed her whole. "Where's your mom? Your dad?" Nothing. Just that empty stare. Caleb glanced around, half expecting to see a car in the ditch, a house nearby, something that made sense. But there was nothing. Just highway and snow and darkness pressing in from all sides. The nearest town was 15 miles back. 15 miles of open road with no houses, no gas stations, nothing but barbed wire and frozen ranch land. Okay. He tried to keep his voice calm, steady, the way he used to talk to Mason during thunderstorms. "Okay, we're going to get you somewhere warm. Can you walk?" She didn't answer, but when he stood and took her hand, she didn't resist. Her fingers felt like ice chips in his palm. He led her to the truck, lifted her into the passenger seat, and slammed the door against the wind. Then he ran around to the driver's side and climbed in, cranking the heat as high as it would go. The cab was warm, not warm enough, not for her, but better than outside. Caleb grabbed the emergency blanket from behind the seat, one of those silver space blankets that folded down to the size of a deck of cards, and wrapped it around the girl over his coat. She sat rigid, staring straight ahead through the windshield. "What's your name?" Caleb put the truck in gear and started rolling forward, slow and careful. No way he was turning around in this. Forward was the only option. Silence. "I'm Caleb." He tried again. "I've got a son about your age. His name's Mason. He likes dinosaurs. You like dinosaurs?" Nothing. He drove. The storm didn't let up. If anything, it got worse, the wind shoving the truck sideways every few seconds. Caleb white-knuckled the wheel and kept his eyes on the faint line of the road's edge. His mind raced. Who was this kid? Where had she come from? And why the hell was she standing in the middle of a highway during the worst blizzard Montana had seen in 5 years? The theories got darker the more he thought about it. Kidnapping, abuse. Someone had dumped her out here to die. His jaw clenched. He'd seen bad things, done some himself, back when he wore the uniform and carried an M4 through places that didn't exist on maps. But this was different. This was a kid. And whoever had done this to her was still out there somewhere. Emma. The word was so quiet he almost missed it. Caleb's head snapped toward her. "What?" "My name is Emma." Her voice was small and hoarse, like she'd been screaming, or crying, or both. "Emma." Caleb nodded. "That's a good name. Emma, can you tell me where you live?" She shook her head. The movement was tiny, jerky. "Do you know your mom's name? Your dad's?" Another shake. "Okay, that's okay." He forced himself to sound calm, even though panic was climbing up his throat. "Do you know where you were before you got on the road?" Emma's lips moved. For a second he thought she wouldn't answer. Then, "The house." "What house?" "The big one, with the gates." Gates? That could mean anything. Rich people had gates. Ranches had gates. Hell, even some of the trailer parks around here had chain link with padlocks. "Was someone chasing you, Emma?" She didn't answer, but her hand moved to the thing she was clutching against her chest. Caleb glanced down. A stuffed animal. A teddy bear, brown and torn, one ear hanging by a thread. The thing looked like it had been through a war. "Is that your bear?" She nodded. "Does he have a name?" "Captain." "Captain." Caleb almost smiled despite everything. "That's a tough name. Military bear, huh?" Emma looked at him for the first time. Really looked at him. Her eyes were gray, storm cloud gray. "Are you a soldier?" The question hit him sideways. "I was. Long time ago. My nanny said soldiers are brave. Your nanny." Caleb latched onto that. "Where's your nanny? Emma?" The girl's face crumpled, not into tears, she was too far gone for that, but into something worse, a kind of collapse from the inside. "She told me to run," Emma whispered. "She said the bad people were coming, and I had to hide and I couldn't make any noise no matter what. And I tried, but I got lost, and it was so dark, and I couldn't find—" Her voice broke. "I couldn't find my mom." Caleb's chest tightened. "It's okay. We're going to find her, I promise." He didn't know if it was a promise he could keep, but what else was he supposed to say? The miles crawled past. The storm turned the road into a tunnel of white and black. Caleb kept talking, filling the silence with whatever came into his head. Stories about Mason, about the garage where he worked, about the time he'd tried to fix Mrs. Chen's dishwasher and flooded her whole kitchen. Anything to keep Emma awake. He'd done enough cold weather training to know that hypothermia victims who fell asleep didn't wake up. "Stay with me, kiddo, he said when her eyelids started to droop. "Tell me about Captain. Where'd you get him?" "My mom." Emma's words were slurring now. "She gave him to me when I was little." "Yeah? What's your mom like?" "Pretty and smart. She's always working. She builds things." "What kind of things?" "Computers and robots and stuff I don't understand." Emma's head lolled against the seat. "She's important." Important. The word stuck in Caleb's mind. He'd assumed she was talking about some local family, Maybe ranchers, maybe oil money. Montana had plenty of both. But something about the way Emma said it, important, made him think bigger. Emma, stay awake. Look at me. He reached over and squeezed her shoulder gently. What's your mom's name? Sabrina. Sabrina what? Emma's eyes closed. Emma! No response. Damn it. Caleb pressed harder on the gas. The truck protested, fishtailing slightly, but he didn't let up. The next town was still 8 miles out. 8 miles might as well be 80 at this speed. He glanced at the girl. She was breathing, shallow and fast, but breathing. The silver blanket crinkled with each rise and fall of her chest. He grabbed his phone from the cup holder. No signal. Of course not. He was in the middle of nowhere, and the storm was probably knocking out cell towers left and right. He threw the phone onto the dash and focused on driving. 5 miles. 4. The lights of town appeared like a miracle, faint and golden through the snow. Caleb had never been so happy to see the ugly sprawl of gas stations and fast food joints that marked the edge of Coldwater, Montana. Population 3,200. 1 stoplight, 2 bars, and a sheriff's office that doubled as the town hall. He drove straight there. The parking lot was empty except for a single cruiser covered in snow. Caleb pulled up next to it, killed the engine, and scooped Emma out of the passenger seat. She didn't wake, didn't move. He kicked the truck door shut and ran for the entrance, boots slipping on ice. The door swung open before he reached it. A broad-shouldered man in a sheriff's uniform stood in the frame, backlit by fluorescent lights. Sheriff Dan Mercer. Caleb knew him vaguely. Everyone knew everyone in towns like this, but they'd never been friends. "Help," Caleb said. It came out hoarse. "I found her on the highway. She's freezing." Mercer's eyes went wide. "Jesus, get her inside." The warmth of the office hit like a wave. Caleb carried Emma to a bench along the wall and laid her down carefully, unwrapping the blanket in his coat. Her skin was waxy, her lips nearly blue. Mercer was already on the phone, barking orders at someone. "Doc Jensen, get down here now. We've got a kid, hypothermia, maybe worse." "Yeah, now." He hung up and crouched next to Caleb. "Where'd you find her?" "Middle of Highway 87, mile marker 34, maybe 35, just standing there." "Standing there." Mercer's tone was flat, disbelieving. "I know how it sounds. You see a car, a house, anything." "Nothing, just her." Caleb looked down at Emma's pale face. "She said her name's Emma, said something about a nanny and bad people." But Mercer's expression shifted. Something clicked behind his eyes. "Bad people." "That's what she said. She was running from—" "Wait." Mercer held up a hand. He stood and walked to his desk, rifling through papers. Then he stopped. Froze. "Emma what?" "I don't know. She didn't—" "Did she say her last name?" "No, but she said her mom's name is Sabrina. Sabrina something. She said her mom builds computers and robots and she's important." The color drained from Mercer's face. He grabbed a paper from the desk and stared at it like it might bite him. Then he looked at Caleb. "Sabrina Vale." "Who?" "Sabrina Vale. Seattle, tech billionaire. Her daughter went missing 3 days ago." Mercer's voice was tight. "There's been an Amber Alert out since Tuesday. FBI's involved. The whole damn country's looking for this kid." Caleb's stomach dropped. "That's her? If her mom's name's Sabrina and she's talking about computers, yeah, that's Emma Vale." Mercer turned the paper around. It was a missing child poster. The photo showed a smiling little girl with dark hair and gray eyes holding a teddy bear. "Captain." "Oh my God," Caleb breathed. The door banged open. A short, balding man in his 60s rushed in carrying a medical bag. Doc Jensen. He didn't ask questions, just went straight to Emma and started checking her vitals. Mercer and Caleb stepped back to give him room. "How long was she out there?" Jensen asked without looking up. "I don't know," Caleb said. "At least an hour before I found her. Maybe longer." Jensen swore under his breath. He pulled out a thermometer, checked her temperature, swore again. 92 degrees. We need to get her to a hospital." "Nearest one's 40 miles. Mercer said. I know where it is, Dan. Jensen was already wrapping Emma in heated blankets he'd pulled from his bag. But she needs an ER, now. This is bad, real bad. Mercer grabbed his keys. I'll drive. Caleb, you're coming with us. You're the only one who's talked to her. They loaded Emma into the back of Mercer's cruiser, Jensen riding with her, Caleb in the front. Mercer hit the lights and sirens and punched it, the big Crown Vic sliding through the snow like a sled. The drive to Helena felt like it took years. Jensen kept up a steady stream of updates from the back seat, temperature rising slowly, pulse thready but stable. No response to stimuli. She gonna make it? Caleb asked. Don't know, Jensen said honestly. We got to her in time, I think. But hypothermia is tricky. Even if the body survives, the brain... He didn't finish. Caleb closed his eyes. He thought about Mason, about what he'd do if someone took his son. If Mason ended up freezing on a highway somewhere. The rage that thought sparked was instant and volcanic. He understood, suddenly, what Sabrina Vale must be feeling. The kind of fear that didn't have a bottom. The hospital rose out of the snow like a fortress. Mercer screeched to a stop at the ER entrance and Jensen was out before the car stopped moving, Emma in his arms. Nurses swarmed. Doctors appeared. Someone was shouting about warming protocols and IV fluids. Then Emma was gone, swallowed by white coats and swinging doors, and Caleb stood in the waiting room dripping melted snow onto linoleum. Mercer was on his phone again. Yeah, we've got her. Emma Vale. No, I don't know how she got here. Yeah, he's here. The guy who found her. Okay. He hung up. FBI's on their way. From where? Seattle. They've had a team working the case. They're flying in tonight. Caleb sank into a plastic chair. His hands were shaking, adrenaline crash. He'd felt it before, after firefights, after bad missions, the body catching up to what the mind already knew. You did good, Mercer said quietly. If you hadn't stopped, I almost didn't. The words came out before Caleb could stop them. I almost kept driving, thought she was a deer. But you didn't. No, he didn't, and that mattered. It had to. The hours blurred together. Nurses came and went. Doctors gave updates. Emma's temperature was rising, her vitals stabilizing. She still hadn't woken up, but the prognosis was good. Better than good. Lucky. Caleb sat in that waiting room and stared at the wall and tried not to think about what almost happened. About the alternate universe where he kept driving and Emma froze to death in the dark. Sometime around 3 a.m., Mercer brought him coffee from a vending machine. It tasted like burnt rubber, but Caleb drank it anyway. You should call someone, Mercer said. Let him know you're okay. Caleb shook his head. Mason's with the neighbor. He's fine. What about you? I'm fine. He wasn't, not really, but he didn't know how to explain the thing sitting in his chest, the weight of it, the sense that something had shifted tonight and couldn't be shifted back. At 4:30 a.m., Emma woke up. A nurse came out and told them, and Caleb was on his feet before she finished talking. Mercer followed him down a maze of hallways to a small room where Emma sat propped up in a hospital bed, wrapped in blankets, an IV taped to her arm. Her eyes were open, clear, focused. She saw Caleb and something in her face broke. You came back, she whispered. Of course I did. He pulled a chair to the bedside and sat. How you feeling, kiddo? Cold. Yeah, that's gonna last a while. He tried to smile. But you're safe now. The doctors fixed you up. Emma looked around the room, at the machines beeping softly, at Mercer standing by the door, at the IV in her arm. Where's my mom? She's coming, Mercer said. Should be here soon. Emma's eyes filled with tears, not the silent kind, the kind that spilled over and kept coming. I want my mom. I know you do. Caleb reached out slowly, carefully, and took her hand. It was warmer now, still small, still fragile, but alive. Your mom's going to be so happy to see you. Is Captain okay? It took him a second to remember. The bear. Yeah, he's in my truck. I'll get him for you. Thank you. Emma squeezed his hand. Her grip was weak but real. The soldier man saved me. Something twisted in Caleb's chest. You saved yourself. You were brave. My nanny said, Emma's voice cracked. She said bad people were coming. She woke me up and told me to run and hide and not make noise, and I tried, but I heard—" She stopped, swallowed. I heard her screaming. The room went very quiet. Mercer stepped forward. "Emma, who was screaming?" "My nanny, Miss Caroline." The tears kept coming. "She told me to go out the window and run to the road and someone would find me, and I did, but I got lost and it was so dark and so cold, and I thought I was going to die." "You didn't die," Caleb said firmly. "You're here. You're okay. But Miss Caroline, we'll find her," Mercer said. It was a lie. Caleb could hear it, but Emma needed to hear it anyway. "Can you tell me where you ran from? What the house looked like?" Emma shook her head. "I don't know. It wasn't our house. It was different, big, and there were trees everywhere, and a long driveway with a gate." "How long were you there?" "I don't know." Her voice was getting smaller. "A day? 2 days? I don't remember." Mercer exchanged a glance with Caleb. "It's okay. You don't have to remember everything right now." But Emma kept talking, the words spilling out like she'd been holding them in too long. "Miss Caroline said we were going on a trip, a fun trip, but then we got to the house, and it wasn't fun. And she looked scared, and she kept making phone calls and crying. And then she woke me up in the middle of the night and said we had to go right now, and that's when I heard the car, and she pushed me out the window and told me to run, and—" She dissolved into sobs. Caleb held her hand and didn't say anything. What could he say? Mercer stepped out into the hall and made another phone call. Caleb heard pieces of it through the door. "Nanny. Possible kidnapping. House with a gate. Yeah, I know. It's not much." When he came back, his face was grim. "FBI wants to talk to her. And to you." "Me? You're a witness. Maybe the only one." Before Caleb could respond, there was a commotion in the hallway. Voices. Quick footsteps. Then the door opened and a woman walked in. She wasn't tall. Maybe 5'5", slender, dark hair pulled back in a ponytail. She wore jeans and a sweater and no makeup, and she looked like she hadn't slept in a week. But even exhausted and raw, there was something about her. A kind of controlled intensity, like a wire pulled too tight. Sabrina Vale. She saw Emma and stopped, just stopped. Her whole body went rigid. "Mom?" Emma's voice broke on the word. Sabrina crossed the room in 3 strides and gathered her daughter into her arms. The sound she made wasn't quite a sob, wasn't quite a gasp. It was something beyond language. Emma clung to her, burying her face in Sabrina's shoulder, and for a long moment neither of them moved. Caleb stood and backed away, giving them space. Mercer did the same. They slipped out into the hallway and closed the door quietly behind them. "Hell of a thing," Mercer muttered. "Yeah." They stood there in silence, listening to the muffled sounds of crying from inside the room. Caleb thought about Mason, about the way he'd hugged his son before leaving for work this morning. Casual, routine, he'd never take that for granted again. The door opened. Sabrina stepped out. Her eyes were red but dry now, her composure rebuilt brick by brick. She looked at Caleb. "You're the one who found her." It wasn't a question. "Yes, ma'am." "She told me what you did." Sabrina's voice was steady, carefully steady. "She said you saved her life. I just happened to be driving by. You stopped. You got her warm. You brought her here." Sabrina took a breath. Most people wouldn't have stopped. Caleb didn't know what to say to that. "She's a kid." "Yes, she is." Something flickered in Sabrina's eyes, gratitude maybe, or something harder. "Thank you. I don't know how to thank you." "You don't have to thank me." "I do." She held out her hand. Caleb shook it. Her grip was firm, controlled. "I owe you everything." There was a pause. Caleb thought she'd say more, but she just nodded once and went back into Emma's room. The door clicked shut. Mercer blew out a breath. "Well, that's that, I guess." But it wasn't. Caleb knew it wasn't. Something about this whole thing felt wrong. The nanny, the screaming, the house with the gate, Emma's fear. "What happens now, he asked. FBI takes over, we write our reports, you go home. Mercer shrugged. Not our case anymore. Just like that? Just like that. Caleb looked at the closed door. He thought about Emma's voice, small and scared. Bad people were coming. He thought about the way Sabrina had looked at him. Grateful, yes, but also guarded, like she was weighing him, measuring him. Something's not right, Caleb said quietly. Mercer gave him a long look. Probably not, but it's not your problem. You did your part. Let it go. Caleb wanted to. He really did. But as he walked out of that hospital into the pre-dawn cold, as he drove his truck back through empty streets toward home, he couldn't shake the feeling that he'd just stepped into something much bigger than a lost child in a snowstorm. And somewhere in the back of his mind, a voice whispered, "This isn't over." The sun came up over Coldwater while Caleb sat in his truck in the hospital parking lot, engine idling, heater blasting. He should have gone home hours ago. Mason would be awake by now, probably eating cereal in front of cartoons while Mrs. Chen dozed on the couch. But Caleb couldn't make himself turn the key, couldn't make himself leave. His phone buzzed. A text from Mrs. Chen. "Mason asking for you, everything okay?" He typed back with numb fingers, "Be home soon, sorry." Another buzz. This time it was a number he didn't recognize. He almost ignored it, then saw it was a voicemail. Must have come through when he was inside, when he had no signal. He pressed play. "Mr. Hayes, this is Agent Sarah Vickers with the FBI. I'm the lead investigator on the Emma Vale case. I need to speak with you as soon as possible regarding what you witnessed last night. Please call me back at this number. It's urgent." The voice was clipped, professional, the kind of voice that didn't ask twice. Caleb deleted the message and tossed the phone onto the passenger seat. He knew he'd have to talk to them eventually, but right now all he wanted was to go home, hug his kid, and pretend the last 12 hours hadn't happened. He was pulling out of the parking lot when he saw her. Sabrina Vale stood near the emergency entrance, alone, smoking a cigarette. She looked different in the daylight, smaller, more human. The controlled intensity had cracked just enough to show the exhaustion underneath. She took a long drag and stared at nothing. Caleb slowed the truck. He told himself to keep driving. This wasn't his business. But his foot found the brake instead of the gas, and before he knew it, he was rolling down the window. "Didn't know tech billionaires smoked." Sabrina's head snapped toward him. For a second, she looked ready to tell him to go to hell. Then something in her face softened. Not much, just a little. "I quit 5 years ago," she said. "Started again about 3 days ago." "Rough week." "You could say that." She took another drag, blew smoke into the cold air. "Shouldn't you be gone by now?" "Probably." "But," Caleb hesitated, "how's Emma?" "Asleep, finally. They gave her something to help." Sabrina flicked ash onto the pavement. "Doctors say she's going to be fine, physically, anyway." "That's good." "Is it?" The question came out sharp, bitter. 3 days, Mr. Hayes. 3 days my daughter was missing, and I didn't know if she was alive or dead or... Her voice broke. She turned away, composing herself. When she spoke again, it was quieter. "Sorry, I'm not usually like this." "You don't have to apologize." "I do, actually. You saved my daughter's life. The least I can do is not fall apart in front of you." Caleb didn't know what to say to that. He put the truck in park and climbed out, leaving it running. The cold bit through his shirt. He'd left his coat with Emma last night and forgotten to get it back. Sabrina noticed. "You're freezing." "I'm fine. See, you're shaking." She was right. He was. Caleb crossed his arms and tried to look less pathetic than he felt. "Here." Sabrina shrugged out of her jacket, expensive-looking black leather, and held it out. "Take it." "I'm not taking your jacket." "You saved my daughter. You can borrow my jacket." When he didn't move, she stepped forward and draped it over his shoulders. It smelled like cigarettes and perfume and money. "There. Now we're both freezing." Despite everything, Caleb almost smiled. "You're stubborn." "So I'm told." Sabrina finished her cigarette and ground it out under her heel. "Can I ask you something?" "Sure." "Why did you stop?" Caleb frowned. What? Last night, on the highway. Most people wouldn't have stopped. They'd have assumed it was a deer or a trick of the light, or they'd have been too scared to get out in a storm like that. But you stopped. Why? He thought about it, really thought about it. I don't know, he said finally. Instinct, maybe? I saw something that didn't make sense, and I couldn't just leave it. Instinct. Sabrina studied him with those sharp, calculating eyes. Sheriff Mercer said you were a soldier. Was. Long time ago. Iraq? Afghanistan. 2 tours. She nodded slowly, like that explained something. And now you're what? Mechanic? Diesel mechanic. I fix trucks mostly, sometimes farm equipment. He felt defensive suddenly, though he wasn't sure why. It's honest work. I didn't say it wasn't. Sabrina pulled out another cigarette, looked at it, then put it back. I'm sorry, I'm not good at this. Talking to people, small talk. This isn't small talk. No, I suppose it isn't. She wrapped her arms around herself. The FBI wants to interview you. I know. They left me a message. They're going to ask you about Emma, about what she said. I figured. Sabrina was quiet for a moment. When she spoke again, her voice had changed, hardened. What exactly did she tell you? In the truck, I mean. Before you got to town. Caleb thought back. The drive felt like weeks ago instead of hours. Not much. She was pretty out of it. Said her name was Emma. Said she couldn't find her mom. Something about a nanny and bad people. Bad people. Sabrina repeated the words like she was tasting them. Did she say who or what they wanted? No, she just said the nanny woke her up and told her to run. Caleb watched her carefully. Your sheriff said the nanny's name is Caroline. That true? Her name was Caroline Mitchell. Sabrina's jaw tightened. They found her body this morning, 40 miles from here, in a rental house off Route 12. Single gunshot to the head. The words landed like stones. Caleb felt something cold settle in his stomach. Emma said she heard her screaming. I know, she told me. Sabrina's voice was flat now, empty. Caroline had been with us for 2 years. Emma loved her, and now she's dead. I'm sorry. Everyone's sorry. There was an edge to it, anger barely contained. The FBI is sorry. The sheriff is sorry. The goddamn governor called to tell me how sorry he is. But none of that brings Caroline back. None of that tells me who killed her or why they took my daughter. Caleb chose his words carefully. The sheriff said there was an Amber Alert, that Emma was kidnapped. That's the official story, yes. Is it the true one? Sabrina looked at him for a long moment. He could see her weighing it, deciding how much to say, how much to trust him. I don't know, she said finally. The FBI thinks Caroline kidnapped Emma for ransom, that she was working with someone else, and they had a falling out. That's why Caroline ended up dead, and Emma ended up on a highway in the middle of nowhere. You don't believe that. It wasn't a question. Sabrina's expression told him everything. Caroline made $60,000 a year, Sabrina said quietly. I paid for her health insurance, her car, her apartment. She had a retirement plan. She was saving to buy a house. Why would she throw all that away for a ransom scheme that had maybe a 10% chance of working? People do stupid things for money. Not Caroline, she wasn't stupid, and she wasn't greedy. Sabrina's hands curled into fists. She loved Emma. I saw it every day. You don't fake that kind of thing. Then why would she take her? That's the question, isn't it? Sabrina turned away, staring out at the parking lot. The sun was higher now, turning the snow into fields of blinding white. The FBI found her phone. She made 17 calls the day before Emma went missing, most of them to numbers they can't trace. Burner phones, probably. Who was she calling? They don't know. Won't tell me if they do. Sabrina's voice dropped. But here's the thing. Caroline sent me a text message the night she took Emma. Just one. It said, I'm so sorry. I had no choice. Keep her safe. Caleb felt the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Keep her safe, not I'm keeping her safe, like she was warning you. Exactly. Sabrina pulled out her phone and showed him the screen. The message was there, timestamp 11:47 p.m. 3 nights ago. The FBI thinks it's a cover, a way to make it look like she wasn't the bad guy, but I don't buy it. What do you buy? Sabrina put the phone away. I think Caroline knew something. I think she found out about something dangerous and she took Emma to protect her, and whoever she was running from caught up. From who? What could a nanny possibly know that's worth killing over? I don't know. But the way she said it made Caleb think she had ideas, theories she wasn't sharing. Ms. Vale, Sabrina, please. Sabrina. He corrected himself. If you think there's more to this, you need to tell the FBI. You think I haven't? Her laugh was sharp and humorless. They won't listen. As far as they're concerned, this is a kidnapping gone wrong, open and shut. They've got a dead nanny, a recovered child, and enough evidence to build a narrative that makes sense. They're not interested in anything that complicates that. So what are you going to do? Sabrina met his eyes. Find out the truth myself. Before Caleb could respond, the hospital doors slid open. A woman in a dark suit stepped out, followed by a man in his 40s with the kind of haircut that screamed federal agent. The woman saw Sabrina and headed straight for them. Ms. Vale, we need to ask you a few more questions. Agent Vickers. Sabrina's tone went cold, professional, the mask sliding back into place. I've already told you everything I know. We have new information about Caroline Mitchell's phone records. Vickers glanced at Caleb. And you must be Mr. Hayes. That's me. I've been trying to reach you. I got your message. Then you know we need to talk. It wasn't a request. Vickers gestured toward the building. Why don't we all go inside where it's warm? Caleb looked at Sabrina. She gave him a small nod like she was giving him permission, or maybe a warning. He couldn't tell which. They ended up in a conference room on the second floor. Gray walls, bad fluorescent lighting, a table that had seen better days. Vickers and her partner, Agent Ross, he introduced himself, sat on one side, Caleb and Sabrina on the other. Vickers pulled out a recorder and set it on the table. Do you mind if we record this? Do I have a choice? Caleb asked. You're not under investigation, Mr. Hayes, but your testimony is critical to our case. We need to get everything on record. Fine. Vickers pressed record and stated the date, time, and names of everyone present. Then she turned to Caleb. Tell me about last night. Everything you remember. Start from when you first saw Emma. So he did. He walked them through it step by step. The storm, the shape in the road, getting Emma in the truck, the drive to Coldwater, what she'd said, what she hadn't said. He left nothing out except the conversation he'd just had with Sabrina. That felt private somehow, not his story to tell. When he finished, Vickers made a note. And you're certain she said bad people were coming? That's what she said. Not a bad person. People, plural. Yeah, why? Vickers exchanged a look with Ross. Because Caroline Mitchell wasn't working alone. We found evidence at the scene suggesting at least 2 other individuals were present when she was killed. Sabrina leaned forward. What kind of evidence? Tire tracks, boot prints, shell casings from 2 different weapons. Vickers ticked them off on her fingers. Caroline was executed, Ms. Vale. This wasn't random. This was professional. The word hung in the air. Professional. You're saying she was killed by hired guns, Sabrina said slowly. We're saying she was killed by people who knew what they were doing. Vickers pulled a folder from her briefcase and slid a photo across the table. It showed a house. Big, modern, lots of glass, surrounded by trees. This is where Caroline was renting, $3,000 a month paid in cash. She moved in 5 days ago. Caleb studied the photo. That's a lot of money for a nanny. Exactly, which suggests she had funding. Someone was backing her. Or she was hiding, Sabrina said quietly. Vickers ignored that. We also found this. She slid another photo over. This one showed a laptop open on a kitchen table. The screen displayed lines of code. Caroline's computer. We're still analyzing it, but preliminary reports suggest she was running some kind of data scraping operation, pulling information from secure servers. What kind of information? Sabrina's voice was tight. We don't know yet. The files are encrypted. Our tech team is working on it. Vickers leaned back in her chair. Ms. Vale, I need to ask you something, and I need you to be honest. Was Caroline Mitchell involved in your company? Did she have access to proprietary information? No, she was a nanny. She took care of Emma. That's it. She never asked questions about your work? Never showed interest in your projects? Of course she did. Everyone asks what I do. It's not a secret. What about access? Could she have gotten into your systems? Sabrina's eyes narrowed. What are you implying? I'm not implying anything. I'm asking a direct question. Could Caroline Mitchell have accessed your company's data? No. Sabrina's tone was ice. Vale Technologies has some of the best cybersecurity in the world. Caroline didn't have credentials. She didn't have clearance. She had no way of accessing anything beyond her personal employee file. Unless someone gave her a way in, Ross said. He'd been quiet until now, just watching. Do you have enemies, Ms. Vale? Business rivals who might want to hurt you? Sabrina laughed. It was not a pleasant sound. I'm a woman running a multi-billion-dollar tech company. I have plenty of enemies. Anyone specific? Anyone who's made threats? I get threats every week. Angry investors, disgruntled former employees, conspiracy theorists who think I'm building Skynet. She waved a hand dismissively. My security team handles it, but Vickers made another note. We'll need a list. Names, incidents, anything that stands out. Fine, I'll have my assistant send it over. And we'll need access to Caroline's employee records, background check, references, everything you have on her. You'll have it by this afternoon. The questions kept coming. What was Caroline's demeanor in the days before she disappeared? Had she seemed nervous? Distracted? Had Emma mentioned anything unusual? Caleb sat there listening, watching Sabrina deflect and answer and reveal nothing she didn't want to reveal. She was good at this. Too good. Like she'd been practicing. Finally, Vickers turned to Caleb. Mr. Hayes, I need you to think carefully. Did Emma say anything else? Anything at all that might help us understand what happened? Caleb thought back. The truck. The storm. Emma's small voice cutting through the wind. She talked about her bear, he said. Captain. Said her mom gave it to her when she was little. Anything else? She said her mom builds things. Computers and robots and stuff she doesn't understand. He paused. She said her mom was important. Sabrina's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Vickers closed her notebook. All right, I think that's everything for now. Mr. Hayes, we may need to speak with you again as the investigation progresses. Don't leave town without letting us know. I'm not going anywhere. Good. Vickers stood. Ms. Vale, a word in private? Sabrina rose without looking at Caleb. Of course. They filed out, leaving Caleb alone in the conference room with Agent Ross. The man hadn't said much, but now he leaned forward, elbows on the table. You did a good thing last night, Ross said. His voice was softer than Vickers, almost friendly. That little girl would be dead if you hadn't stopped. I know. But I want you to understand something. Ross's tone shifted, still friendly, but with an edge underneath. This case is bigger than a missing child. There are national security implications here, things I can't discuss. So when I tell you to stay out of it, I'm not just protecting the investigation, I'm protecting you. Caleb met his eyes. Is that a threat? It's advice. Good advice. Ross stood and buttoned his jacket. Go home, Mr. Hayes. Hug your kid. Forget this ever happened. Trust me, you'll sleep better. Then he left, and Caleb was alone. He sat there for a minute, thinking. National security. Professional killers. Encrypted files. None of it made sense. Or maybe it made too much sense, in a way he didn't want to acknowledge. He found Sabrina in the hallway outside Emma's room. She was leaning against the wall, eyes closed, looking like she might collapse at any second. You okay? He asked. She opened her eyes. No, but I will be. What did they want? The usual, more questions, more accusations disguised as concern. She pushed off the wall. They think I'm hiding something. Are you? Sabrina looked at him for a long moment. Everyone's hiding something, Caleb. The question is whether it matters. Before he could respond, a nurse appeared. "Miss Vale? Emma's awake. She's asking for you." "Thank you." Sabrina turned to Caleb. "You should go. Get some rest. You look like hell." "So do you." "Yeah, well, comes with the territory." She hesitated, then held out her hand. "Thank you, again. I know I keep saying it, but I mean it. You gave me my daughter back." Caleb shook her hand. "I'm glad she's okay." He meant it, but as he walked out of that hospital, as he drove through town toward home, he couldn't shake the feeling that okay was relative. Emma was alive, yes. Safe, maybe. But there were pieces missing from this story. Big pieces. And someone had killed to keep them hidden. Mason was waiting on the porch when Caleb pulled into the driveway. The kid launched himself off the steps and ran to the truck, nearly knocking Caleb over when he climbed out. "Dad, where were you? Mrs. Chen said you had to help someone, but she wouldn't tell me what, and I got scared. Hey, I'm here. I'm okay." Caleb knelt down and pulled his son into a hug. Mason smelled like syrup and sleep. "I'm sorry I scared you, bud." "What happened?" "I found a little girl who got lost, had to help her get home. Is she okay?" "Yeah, she's okay." Mason pulled back, studying his dad's face with serious 6-year-old eyes. "You look tired." "I am tired." "Mrs. Chen made pancakes. There's some left if you want." "I want." Caleb stood, keeping one hand on Mason's shoulder. "Come on, let's go eat." Mrs. Chen met them at the door. She was 70-something, tiny, tough as nails. She'd lived next door for 15 years and had basically adopted Caleb and Mason after Mason's mom left. Now she looked Caleb up and down and frowned. "You look like death," she announced. "Good morning to you too. Don't get smart, sit. I'll heat up the pancakes." Caleb sat. Mason climbed into the chair next to him and started chattering about school, about a science project involving vinegar and baking soda, about how his friend Tyler had thrown up an art class. Normal kid stuff. Beautiful, boring, normal kid stuff. Mrs. Chen set a plate in front of Caleb. "The news is saying that Billionaire's daughter got found. That true?" "Just..." "Yeah. They're saying someone found her on the highway during the storm." "Yeah." She gave him a look. "That someone you?" Caleb cut into his pancakes. "Maybe." Mrs. Chen poured coffee, set the mug down hard enough to make a point. "You gonna be on TV?" "I hope not." "Good. TV people are vultures." She patted his shoulder. "You did good, Caleb. Real good." He ate the pancakes. They tasted like cardboard, but he finished them anyway because Mrs. Chen was watching and because Mason kept sneaking glances at him like he might disappear if he looked away too long. When he was done, he sent Mason upstairs to brush his teeth and walked Mrs. Chen to the door. "Thank you," he said, "for watching him." "Don't be stupid. You know I love that boy." She pulled on her coat. "But Caleb? Whatever happened last night, let it go. I can see it in your face. You're chewing on something. Don't. You got a good life here. A good kid. Don't go looking for trouble." "I'm not." "Liar." But she said it fondly. "Get some sleep. You look like death." She left. Caleb locked the door behind her and stood in the quiet house, listening to Mason sing off-key upstairs. He should sleep, shower, do something normal. Instead, he pulled out his phone and Googled Sabrina Vale. The results were overwhelming. Thousands of articles, Forbes profiles, TED Talks. She'd founded Vale Technologies at 23, straight out of MIT. The company specialized in artificial intelligence and machine learning, with contracts from everyone from Fortune 500s to the Department of Defense. She was worth somewhere north of $3 billion. She'd been named to Time's 100 most influential people. She dated movie stars and gave millions to charity and lived in a penthouse in Seattle that had been featured in Architectural Digest. And now her daughter had almost frozen to death on a Montana highway. Caleb scrolled through photos. Sabrina at galas, Sabrina giving speeches, Sabrina shaking hands with senators and tech giants. In every picture she looked polished, untouchable, nothing like the exhausted woman smoking cigarettes in a hospital parking lot. He found an article from 2 years ago. Vale Technologies under fire over military contracts. He skimmed it. Something about facial recognition software being used by the government. Privacy advocates protesting. Sabrina defending her work, saying it saved lives. Another article, more recent. Former Vale employee files whistleblower complaint. The details were vague, allegations of data misuse. The case had been settled out of court. No admission of wrongdoing. Caleb kept digging. The deeper he went, the more complicated the picture became. Sabrina Vale wasn't just a tech billionaire. She was someone who built things governments wanted, things governments paid for, things that made enemies. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. Mr. Hayes? A man's voice, unfamiliar. Who's this? Someone who wants to help you. We should meet. I don't meet strangers who won't give me their names. Smart. I respect that. My name is Marcus Webb. I'm an investigative journalist. I've been following the Emma Vale case since she went missing. Good for you. Well, I know you found her. I know you brought her in. And I know the FBI is telling you it was a kidnapping. Webb paused. It wasn't. Caleb's grip tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? I'm a journalist. It's what I do. Another pause. Caroline Mitchell contacted me 2 weeks before she died. She wanted to meet. Said she had information about Vale Technologies that the public needed to know. We were supposed to meet last Monday. She never showed. Maybe she changed her mind. Maybe someone changed it for her. Webb's voice dropped. Look, I don't know what Emma told you, but I know Caroline was scared. I know she thought she was in danger, and I know she died trying to protect that little girl from something a lot worse than a ransom scheme. Why are you telling me this? Because you're a witness, and because I think you deserve to know what you stepped into. Webb sighed. Meet me. 1 hour. There's a diner off Route 89 called Betty's. You know it? I know it. Good. Come alone. And Mr. Hayes, don't tell anyone about this call. Not the FBI, not the sheriff, no one. If you do, we're both dead. The line went dead. Caleb stood there, staring at his phone. Every instinct he had was screaming at him to delete the call log and forget it ever happened. Agent Ross's words echoed in his head. Go home. Hug your kid. Forget this ever happened. But he thought about Emma's voice in the dark, about Caroline Mitchell dying alone in a rental house, about Sabrina's warning, keep her safe. He looked up the stairs. Mason was in his room, probably playing with Legos. Safe. Happy. Normal. Caleb made a decision he knew he'd probably regret. He went upstairs, told Mason he had to run an errand, and called Mrs. Chen to come back over. Then he grabbed his keys and headed for the door, trying not to think too hard about what he was about to do. Betty's Diner sat at the intersection of Route 89 and a county road that didn't have a name, just a number. The building was a relic from the 50s, all chrome and faded red vinyl, the kind of place where truckers stopped for coffee at 3 a.m. and nobody asked questions. Caleb had been there maybe twice in his life. Both times the coffee had been terrible and the pie worse. He pulled into the gravel lot and counted 3 other vehicles, a semi with Oregon plates, a rusted-out Chevy that looked older than he was, and a silver sedan that screamed rental car. He killed the engine and sat there for a minute, second-guessing everything. This was stupid. Meeting some stranger who called out of nowhere with conspiracy theories about a case that wasn't his business. Agent Ross had been right. He should go home, stay out of it. But the thing was, Caleb had spent 2 tours in Afghanistan learning to trust his instincts. And right now those instincts were telling him that Marcus Webb might be the only person willing to tell him the truth. He got out of the truck and headed for the door. Inside, the diner was exactly as depressing as he remembered. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. The smell of burnt coffee and fryer grease hung in the air. A waitress who looked about 100 years old stood behind the counter filing her nails. She glanced up when Caleb walked in, gave him a look that said she'd seen everything twice, and went back to her nails. There were only 2 customers. The trucker sat at the counter, hunched over a plate of eggs, and in the back booth, a man in his 40s with salt and pepper hair and wire-rimmed glasses looked up from a laptop. He caught Caleb's eye and nodded once. Marcus Webb. Caleb slid into the booth across from him. Up close, Webb looked tired, the kind of tired that came from not sleeping enough and thinking too much. He had the rumpled look of someone who lived out of suitcases and survived on truck stop coffee. Mr. Hayes. Webb closed the laptop and extended a hand. Thanks for coming. Caleb didn't shake it. You've got 10 minutes. Talk. Webb's mouth twitched, almost a smile. Fair enough. He pulled a folder from the bag next to him and slid it across the table. Caroline Mitchell, age 31, graduated from University of Washington with a degree in early childhood education. Started working for Sabrina Vale 2 years ago. By all accounts, she was good at her job. Emma loved her. No red flags, no criminal record, nothing that would suggest she was capable of kidnapping. The FBI thinks she was working with someone. The FBI thinks whatever narrative keeps their case clean. Webb opened the folder. Inside were photos. Caroline with Emma at a park. Caroline at a coffee shop. Caroline getting into a car. I've been following her for 3 weeks, ever since she reached out to me. Caleb picked up one of the photos. Caroline looked normal. Happy, even. What did she want from you? Protection, I think. Or maybe just someone who'd listen. Webb pulled out a small recorder and set it on the table. She called me on March 2nd, said she had evidence of illegal activity at Vale Technologies, said people could get hurt if it came out, but more people would get hurt if it stayed buried. She was terrified, Mr. Hayes. I could hear it in her voice. Evidence of what? She wouldn't say over the phone, wanted to meet in person. We set up a time and place she never showed. Webb pressed play on the recorder. A woman's voice filled the booth, quiet, shaking. Mr. Webb, this is Caroline Mitchell. I don't know if you remember, but we met at a conference last year. You gave me your card. You said if I ever needed help, if I ever saw something that needed to be exposed, a long pause. I need help. I work for Sabrina Vale. I take care of her daughter. And I found something. Something bad. I don't know who else to tell. The police won't believe me. Her lawyers will bury it. But you expose this kind of thing. That's what you do, right? Webb's voice on the recording, calm and professional. What kind of thing are we talking about? I can't say over the phone. It's not safe. Can we meet? Please, I have files, proof, but I need guarantees. I need to know you'll protect my identity. I need to know Emma will be safe. Emma? Sabrina's daughter. If this comes out, if they know I'm the one who… Caroline's voice broke. I can't let anything happen to her. She's just a kid. None of this is her fault. The recording ended. Webb turned it off and looked at Caleb. That was the last time I heard from her. 3 days later, she disappeared with Emma. 4 days after that, she turned up dead. Caleb sat back, processing. What was the something bad? I don't know. She died before she could tell me. Webb's jaw tightened. But I've been digging, and I think it has to do with Project Sentinel. What's Project Sentinel? That's the billion-dollar question. Webb pulled out another document, this one printed on official-looking letterhead. Department of Defense. Most of it was redacted, black bars covering whole paragraphs. This is a contract between Vale Technologies and the DoD, signed 18 months ago, worth $900 million over 3 years. The details are classified, but the summary says it's for advanced AI surveillance systems. Caleb scanned the visible text. A lot of technical jargon he didn't understand. Words like neural networks and predictive algorithms and real-time threat assessment. Surveillance for what? Officially, counterterrorism. Tracking high-value targets overseas, preventing attacks before they happen. Webb leaned forward. Unofficially, I think they're using it domestically. I think they're watching American citizens without warrants, and I think Caroline found out. That's a hell of an accusation. I know, which is why I need proof. Webb gestured at the folder. Caroline said she had files, hard evidence, but if she did, they died with her. Unless what? Unless she gave them to someone before she ran. Webb's eyes locked on Caleb's. Did Emma have anything with her when you found her? A bag? A phone? Anything? Caleb thought back. The road, the storm, Emma standing there in her nightgown. Just her bear. You're sure? Yeah, why? Webb chewed his lip, thinking. Caroline was smart. If she knew she was in danger, she wouldn't have left evidence lying around. She would have hidden it, somewhere safe, somewhere no one would think to look. Like where? Like in a child's toy. The words hung between them. Caleb's mind went to Captain, the torn teddy bear Emma had been clutching like a lifeline. He'd left it in his truck, hadn't thought about it since. You think she hid files in the bear, Caleb said slowly. I think it's possible. USB drives are tiny. You could sew one into a stuffed animal and no one would notice. Webb closed the folder. Do you still have it? The bear? Yeah. Can I see it? Caleb hesitated. Every rational part of his brain was screaming at him to walk away, to hand the bear over to the FBI and let them deal with it. But another part, the part that had listened to Caroline's voice on that recording, the part that had seen the fear in Emma's eyes, that part wanted answers. Not here, Caleb said, and not without guarantees of my own. Webb nodded. Name them. If we find something, you don't publish until I say so. Emma's been through enough. I'm not letting you turn her into the center of a media circus. Agreed. What else? You tell me everything you know. No holding back. No journalist bullshit about protecting sources. I want the whole story. Webb considered that. Some of what I know could put you in danger. I'm already in danger. Or did you forget the part where you told me we'd both be dead if I mentioned this call? Fair point. Webb extended his hand again. Deal. This time Caleb shook it. They left the diner separately. Webb first, then Caleb 5 minutes later. Outside, the temperature had dropped. The sky was clear now, hard and blue and cold enough to hurt. Caleb climbed into his truck and pulled out his phone. 3 missed calls from Mrs. Chen. 1 text from Mason. When are you coming home? Guilt twisted in his chest. He typed back, Soon, buddy. Sorry. Then he started the engine and headed back toward town, trying to figure out how he was going to explain to a 6-year-old why they needed to take apart his stuffed bear. When he got home, Mrs. Chen was waiting on the porch. She had that look on her face, the one that said he was about to get lectured. Where have you been? She demanded before he was even out of the truck. I told you I had to run an errand. An errand that takes 2 hours? It was a long errand. Mrs. Chen crossed her arms. The FBI called, twice. They want to talk to you again. Did you tell them where I was? How could I? You didn't tell me. She followed him into the house. Caleb, what's going on? And don't say nothing. I know you. Something's eating at you. He wanted to tell her. Wanted to unload the whole mess and let her wisdom and good sense talk him out of whatever stupidity he was planning. But he thought about Marcus Webb's warning, about Caroline Mitchell dying with a bullet in her head, about professional killers and national security, and things he didn't understand. I'm fine, he lied. Just tired. Liar. But she softened. Mason's upstairs. He finished his homework. I made him a snack. She grabbed her coat. Get some rest, Caleb. Whatever this is, it's not worth killing yourself over. After she left, Caleb stood in the hallway and listened to the house. Mason's voice drifted down from upstairs, talking to himself while he played. Normal sounds. Safe sounds. The kind of sounds Caleb would do anything to protect. He climbed the stairs and found Mason building an elaborate Lego spaceship on his bedroom floor. The kid looked up and grinned. Dad, look what I made. It's got laser cannons and everything. That's awesome, bud. Caleb sat down on the edge of the bed. Hey, can I ask you something? Sure. You know how I found that little girl last night? Mason nodded seriously. The lost one. Right. Well, she had a teddy bear with her, and I need to check something about it, but it's kind of important. Do you understand? What kind of something? Caleb chose his words carefully. I think there might be something inside it, something that could help people understand what happened to her. Like a secret? Yeah, like a secret. Mason thought about this. Is the girl going to be okay? I hope so. Then you should find the secret. Mason went back to his spaceship. Secrets are bad if they hurt people. Out of the mouths of children. Caleb ruffled his son's hair and went back downstairs to the truck. Captain was still in the passenger seat, right where Emma had left him. The bear looked worse in daylight, one ear hanging by threads, stuffing poking out of a tear in his side, the kind of warn that came from years of being loved. Caleb picked him up and felt along the seams. Nothing obvious, no hard edges, no lumps that didn't belong. But Caroline Mitchell had been smart. If she'd hidden something, she would have done it well. He carried the bear inside and laid it on the kitchen table. For a long moment, he just stared at it, feeling like he was about to cross a line he couldn't uncross. Then he went to the junk drawer and pulled out a seam ripper. The stitching along the bear's back was newer than the rest, neater, like it had been redone recently. Caleb worked carefully, pulling the threads one by one, trying not to damage the fabric more than necessary. The seam came apart slowly. Stuffing bulged out. And then, wedged deep in the bear's chest cavity, his fingers found something hard. A USB drive. Small, black, waterproof case. Caleb pulled it out and held it up to the light. No markings, no labels. Just a simple flash drive that could hold anything or nothing. His phone rang. He nearly dropped the drive. It was a blocked number. Caleb answered. "Mr. Hayes," Sabrina Vale's voice, "we need to talk." "How did you get this number?" "I'm a tech billionaire. Getting phone numbers is not a challenge." A pause. "Are you alone?" "My son's upstairs." "Good. Don't let him out of your sight." Her voice was tight, urgent. "Something's happened. The FBI just left. They're calling Caroline's death a murder-suicide." "What?" "They're saying she killed her partner, that they had a falling out over the ransom and she shot him before turning the gun on herself." Sabrina's laugh was bitter. "It's bullshit, complete bullshit, but it's the story they're going with." Caleb's grip tightened on the phone. "Partner? What partner?" "They found a body in the woods near the rental house. Male, mid-30s, 2 shots to the chest. No ID, but they're saying he and Caroline were working together and something went wrong." "Do you believe that?" "No, but it doesn't matter what I believe. The case is closed, Caleb. As far as the FBI is concerned, Emma was kidnapped by a nanny who panicked and killed her accomplice before getting killed herself. Clean, simple, wrapped up with a bow. Convenient, isn't it?" Sabrina's voice dropped. "I'm flying back to Seattle tonight, taking Emma home. But before I go, I need to know something. Did Emma give you anything, say anything that might explain what Caroline was doing?" Caleb looked at the USB drive in his hand, at the torn bear on the table. He thought about Agent Ross's warning, about Marcus Webb's paranoia, about the way Sabrina was asking the question, like she already knew the answer and just wanted confirmation. "No," he lied. "Just what I told the FBI." Silence on the other end, long enough that Caleb thought she might have hung up. Then, "If that changes, if you remember something, call me, not the FBI, me." She gave him a number, made him repeat it back. "I mean it, Caleb. Whatever you find, whatever you think you know, you come to me first. Do you understand?" "Why?" "Because I'm the only one who can protect you." The line went dead. Caleb set the phone down. His hands were shaking. He looked at the USB drive, then at the stairs where Mason was playing, oblivious and safe. Every instinct told him to destroy the drive, throw it in the river, forget it existed. But Caroline Mitchell's voice echoed in his head. "I need to know Emma will be safe." He grabbed his laptop from the counter and plugged in the drive. The folder that appeared was labeled Project Sentinel. Inside were hundreds of files, documents, spreadsheets, video files, audio recordings. Caleb opened one at random, a memo dated 6 months ago from someone named Dr. Ellen Voss to Sabrina Vale. "The domestic deployment of Sentinel is proceeding ahead of schedule. Beta testing in Chicago, Detroit, and Houston has yielded an 87% accuracy rate in predictive threat modeling. However, I must again voice my concerns regarding the legality of warrantless surveillance on American citizens. While I understand the potential security benefits, the constitutional implications cannot be ignored. I recommend we seek legal counsel before proceeding to Phase 3. Sabrina's response was one line, "Legal will handle it. Proceed as planned." Caleb's stomach turned. He opened another file. This one was a video. The timestamp said it was from 3 weeks ago. The footage showed a street corner, busy, people walking. Then the camera zoomed in on a man in a hoodie. A box appeared around his face. Text scrolled across the screen. Name, age, address, criminal record, everything. The man walked half a block before police cruisers appeared from nowhere and surrounded him. Another video. A woman getting into a car, same box, same data. She drove 3 miles before getting pulled over. The cop already had her information before he approached the window. Another video. A teenager in a park. The system flagged him as a potential threat based on his social media posts. 20 minutes later, he was in handcuffs. Caleb watched file after file. The pattern was clear. Veil Technologies had built a surveillance system that could identify anyone, anywhere, in real time. And they were using it on American citizens without warrants, without oversight, without anyone's knowledge. He found an audio file labeled Caroline's Notes. He pressed play. Caroline's voice, quiet and scared. March 1st. I found the files today. I wasn't supposed to. I was looking for Emma's birth certificate in Sabrina's home office, and I saw the folder on her computer. Project Sentinel. I thought it was about the Pentagon contract she's always talking about, something overseas. But it's not. It's here, in American cities. They're watching people, tracking them, predicting what they'll do before they do it. And the worst part is, it's working. The data shows it's working, but nobody knows. The public has no idea this exists. A pause. The sound of papers rustling. I don't know what to do. If I go to the police, Sabrina's lawyers will destroy me. If I go to the press, who's going to believe a nanny over a billionaire? But if I do nothing, if I just let this happen. Her voice broke. Emma asked me today why I was sad. I told her I was just tired. But I'm not tired. I'm terrified. Because I know what happens to people who try to expose things like this. And I know what they'll do if they find out I know. The recording ended. Caleb sat there in the silence of his kitchen, staring at the laptop screen. This was bigger than Emma, bigger than Caroline. This was the kind of thing that toppled governments and destroyed lives and got people killed in rental houses with bullets in their heads. He should have listened to Agent Ross, should have stayed out of it. But it was too late for that now. His phone buzzed, a text from Marcus Webb. Did you check? Caleb hesitated. Then he typed, Found it. We need to meet. The response came back immediately. Same place, 1 hour, come alone. Caleb looked at the clock. It was almost 5. Mason would need dinner, bath, bedtime, all the normal routines that made up their normal life. A life that was about to get a lot more complicated. He called Mrs. Chen. I need another favor, he said when she picked up. She sighed. What now? Can you stay with Mason tonight? Maybe tomorrow too? Caleb? I know I'm asking a lot, but it's important. How important? He thought about how to answer that, thought about Caroline Mitchell and professional killers and national security and lies wrapped in official stories. Important enough that I need to know he's somewhere safe. The line was quiet for a moment. Then Mrs. Chen said, Bring him over. But Caleb, whatever you're doing, be careful. That boy needs his father. I know. He packed a bag for Mason, pajamas, toothbrush, the stuffed dinosaur he couldn't sleep without. Then he went upstairs and told his son they were having a sleepover at Mrs. Chen's house. Mason, thrilled at the unexpected treat, barely asked why. He just grabbed his bag and ran for the door. Caleb watched him go, feeling like a coward for not telling the truth, for not explaining that his dad was about to wade into something dangerous and stupid and probably doomed. But what was he supposed to say? That he'd found evidence of illegal government surveillance and was meeting a journalist in a truck stop diner? That people had already died for this information and he might be next? No. Better to let the kid think it was just a sleepover. He dropped Mason at Mrs. Chen's, endured another lecture about being careful, and drove back to Betty's diner as the sun sank below the mountains. The parking lot was emptier this time. Just the silver rental car and one other vehicle. Webb's, probably. Inside, the same ancient waitress gave him the same tired look. Webb sat in the same back booth, but this time he wasn't alone. A woman sat across from him. Mid-50s, short gray hair, the kind of face that had seen too much and stopped being surprised by any of it. Webb waved Caleb over. This is Dr. Ellen Voss. She worked for Veil Technologies until 3 months ago. She's the one who designed Project Sentinel. Caleb slid into the booth next to Webb. You built it? Voss met his eyes. Hers were tired. Guilty. I built it, and I've been trying to kill it ever since. Why? Because I was an idiot who thought I could build something good, something that would save lives. She laughed bitterly. I designed Sentinel to identify terrorists, real threats, people planning attacks. The idea was to use AI to analyze patterns, predict behavior, stop things before they happened. It was supposed to be used overseas, against enemy combatants. That's what Sabrina promised me. But that's not what happened, Caleb said. No, that's not what happened. Voss pulled out a cigarette, then remembered they were inside and put it away. 6 months into the project, Sabrina expanded the scope, started testing it domestically, said it was just a pilot program, just to prove the technology worked. But then the pilot program became operational, and operational became permanent, and suddenly we were tracking American citizens without warrants, without consent, without any legal oversight whatsoever. How many cities? 12. Chicago, Detroit, Houston, Philadelphia, Phoenix, San Antonio, San Diego, Dallas, San Jose, Austin, Jacksonville, and Fort Worth. She recited them like a confession. Hundreds of thousands of people, all being watched, all the time. Caleb felt sick. And the government knows? Some parts of it. The DoD authorized the original contract, but I don't think they know how far it's gone, how much Sabrina's expanded it. She's been very careful, very quiet. Voss leaned forward. That's why I quit. That's why I've been trying to find someone who'd listen. And that's why Caroline Mitchell is dead. You knew Caroline? We met twice. She contacted me after I left the company. Said she'd found files that proved what I'd been saying. Said she wanted to help expose it. I told her to run. Told her to take those files and get as far away from Sabrina as possible. Voss's voice cracked. But she wouldn't leave Emma. She said she couldn't abandon that little girl. So she made copies of everything and tried to find someone who could protect them both. Webb spoke up. That's when she called me. 2 days after talking to Dr. Voss. And 4 days before she ended up with a bullet in her head, Caleb finished. Voss nodded. They knew she had the files. They were always going to kill her. The only question was when. They? Caleb looked between them. Who's they? Sabrina? I don't know. Voss's face was gray. Maybe. Or maybe people working for her. Or maybe people in the government who have too much invested in keeping this quiet. The problem with building a surveillance state is that you create a lot of people with a lot to lose if it comes out. Caleb pulled out the USB drive and set it on the table. Is this what they were looking for? Voss picked it up, turned it over in her hands. Her fingers were shaking. Where did you get this? Caroline hid it in Emma's teddy bear. Smart, very smart. Voss plugged the drive into her own laptop and started scrolling through files. Her face went pale. This is everything, every memo, every test result, every deployment location. If this gets out, it's over. The whole program collapses. Sabrina goes to prison. People in the DoD lose their jobs, maybe worse. Good, Caleb said. Good? Voss looked at him like he was crazy. You don't understand. If we publish this, we're not just exposing a surveillance program. We're accusing one of the most powerful people in America of crimes against the Constitution. We're declaring war on people who have unlimited resources and zero scruples. We're signing our own death warrants. Caroline signed hers when she tried to do the right thing, Caleb shot back. You want to let that be for nothing? Voss closed the laptop, closed her eyes. No, I don't. Webb put a hand on her shoulder. We can protect you. Go somewhere safe while I publish the story. By the time they figure out where you are, it'll be too late. The information will be public. And then what? Voss opened her eyes. You think they'll just let it go? These people don't lose, Marcus. They bury things. And if they can't bury things, they bury the people who know about them. So what's your solution? Caleb demanded. We just pretend this doesn't exist? We let them keep watching people? Keep violating rights? Keep killing anyone who gets in their way? I don't have a solution. Voss's voice rose. The waitress looked over. They all went quiet until she lost interest. Voss lowered her voice. I've been trying to figure this out for months. And the truth is, I don't know how to win. They're too big, too connected, too scared. Caleb interrupted. They both looked at him. They're scared, he repeated. If they weren't, Caroline would still be alive. They wouldn't have killed her. They would have just bought her silence, threatened her, whatever. But they killed her because they're terrified of what she knew, which means this information has power, real power. Webb was nodding. He's right. They're scrambling. That's why they closed the case so fast. Why they're calling it a murder-suicide. They want this buried before anyone asks the right questions. So we ask the questions, Caleb said. We publish everything. Force them to respond. Make it too big to cover up. Voss looked at him for a long moment. You have a son, don't you? The question hit like a punch. Yeah. How old? 6. What's his name? Mason. Caleb's jaw tightened. Why? Because I want you to think about him, really think about him. Think about what happens to him if you do this and they come after you. Think about him growing up without a father because his dad decided to play hero. Voss's eyes were hard. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to make you understand what you're risking. Caleb thought about Mason building Lego spaceships, about the way he laughed at stupid jokes, about how he still needed help tying his shoes, about a future where that kid had to visit his father's grave instead of his living room. I know what I'm risking, he said quietly, but I also know what happens if we do nothing, and I can't look my son in the eye and tell him to do the right thing when I'm too scared to do it myself. The booth fell silent. Outside, the last light was fading from the sky. Inside, the fluorescent lights hummed, and the waitress wiped down the counter, and somewhere in the kitchen, something was burning. Finally, Webb spoke. I can have the story ready in 48 hours. Full investigation, multiple sources, documents, videos, everything. It'll run nationally. Maybe internationally if I play it right. 48 hours, Vim, Voss repeated. She looked older suddenly, worn down. You'll need to go dark, both of you. No phones, no credit cards, no digital footprint. They'll be looking for you the second this hits. I've got a cabin, Webb said. Up near the Canadian border, no internet, off the grid. We can work from there. Caleb thought about Mrs. Chen watching Mason, about the garage where he worked, about the small, quiet life he'd built after the war, a life that was about to explode. Okay, he said, 48 hours. He stood to leave and Voss grabbed his arm. Mr. Hayes, thank you for believing her, for believing us. Most people wouldn't. Caleb looked down at her hand on his sleeve. Caroline died trying to protect a little girl. That's worth believing in. He left before either of them could respond. Outside, the air was freezing. Stars were coming out, hard and bright and indifferent. Caleb climbed into his truck and sat there with the engine running, trying to process what he'd just agreed to. His phone rang. Unknown number again. Hello? Mr. Hayes. A man's voice, cold, professional, unfamiliar. You need to stop what you're doing. Caleb's blood went cold. Who is this? Someone who's trying to save your life. You found something that doesn't belong to you. We want it back. I don't know what you're talking about. Yes, you do. The USB drive Caroline Mitchell hid in the bear. Give it to us, and this ends quietly. Keep it and... A pause. Well, I'm sure you can imagine what happens. Caleb's hand tightened on the phone. How did you get this number? The same way we know where your son is right now, Mrs. Chen's house. Third one from the corner, blue shutters. Very charming. Rage flooded through him, hot and instant and overwhelming. If you touch him, we won't. Not if you're smart. The voice was almost bored. You have until tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. There's a rest stop on Highway 87, mile marker 52. Leave the drive there and walk away. Do that, and you and your boy live normal, happy lives. Don't... Another pause. Well, accidents happen, especially to curious mechanics who don't know when to mind their own business. The line went dead. Caleb sat there shaking, not from cold, from fury, from fear, from the sick realization that he'd dragged Mason into this, that his stupid decision to play hero might cost his son everything. He started the truck and drove. Not home, not to Mrs. Chen's. Just drove, trying to think, trying to figure out how to protect the only thing in the world that mattered while also doing what Caroline Mitchell had died trying to do. His phone rang again. This time it was Sabrina. "Don't hang up," she said before he could speak. "I know they called you. I know they threatened you." "How?" "Because they called me too. Told me to control you. Told me to make you give back what you found." Her voice was raw, exhausted. "Caleb, whatever you're planning, don't. These people don't make empty threats." "I'm aware." "Then why are you still fighting? Why not just give them what they want?" "Because your nanny died for this. Because people are being watched without their knowledge or consent. Because it's wrong." He was shouting now, didn't care. "And because I'm tired of people like you building things that hurt people and hiding behind lawyers and money when it blows up in your face." Silence. Long and heavy. Then Sabrina said very quietly, "You think I don't know it's wrong?" "I think you knew and did it anyway." "You're right, I did. I told myself it was for security, for safety, that the ends justified the means. But they don't, do they?" She laughed, and it sounded broken. "Caroline knew. That's why she took Emma. She didn't kidnap my daughter for ransom. She took her to protect her from what I'd built, from what I'd become." Caleb had nothing to say to that. "I'm going to Seattle tonight," Sabrina continued, "taking Emma home. Tomorrow I'm calling a press conference. I'm going to tell the truth. All of it, Project Sentinel, the domestic surveillance, everything." "You're lying." "No, I'm not, because you're right. And Caroline was right, and I can't live with this anymore." Her voice cracked. "But Caleb, before I do that, I need you to do something for me." "What?" "Keep Mason safe. Take him somewhere far away. Somewhere they can't find him. Because when this comes out, when I admit what I've done, they're going to come after everyone. Me. You. Anyone who knows. And I won't be able to stop them." The line went dead. Caleb drove through the dark, his mind racing. He didn't trust Sabrina. Didn't believe she'd actually go through with it. But he believed the threat was real. Believed that people with guns and no conscience were out there right now, deciding whether he was worth killing. He pulled into Mrs. Chen's driveway and sat there looking at the house. The lights were on. Through the window, he could see Mason at the kitchen table, eating ice cream and laughing at something Mrs. Chen said. Normal. Safe. Good. Caleb made his decision. He got out of the truck and went inside to collect his son. Mrs. Chen took one look at Caleb's face and knew something was wrong. She set down her tea and stood up from the kitchen table, her expression shifting from warm to worried in the space of a heartbeat. "What happened?" "I need to take Mason." Caleb kept his voice level, calm, the way he used to sound when giving orders in combat zones. "Right now." "Caleb? Please, I'll explain later. Right now I just need to get him and go." Mason looked up from his ice cream, confused. "But Dad, I just got here." "I know, buddy. Change of plans." Caleb forced a smile. "How about we go on an adventure instead?" "What kind of adventure?" "A surprise one. The best kind." He looked at Mrs. Chen. "Can you pack up his stuff?" She didn't move. "Not until you tell me what's going on." "Mrs. Chen, no." Her voice was steel wrapped in velvet. "I've known you for 15 years, Caleb Hayes. I watched you come back from that war barely holding yourself together. I watched you raise that boy alone after his mother left. And I've never seen you look the way you look right now. So you're going to tell me what's happening, or you're not taking that child anywhere." Caleb glanced at Mason. The kid was watching them both with wide eyes, ice cream forgotten. He shouldn't hear this, shouldn't know any of it, but there was no time for careful explanations. "Someone threatened him," Caleb said quietly. "Someone called me and said they know where he is, and if I don't do what they want by tomorrow morning, something might happen. So I'm taking him somewhere safe, somewhere they can't find us." Mrs. Chen's face went pale. "Who? Who would threaten a child?" "It doesn't matter. What matters is that I believe them." She searched his face for a long moment. Then she turned to Mason. "Go upstairs and get your things, sweetheart. Your toothbrush and pajamas and that dinosaur you like. But now, Mason." The kid recognized that tone. He slid off his chair and headed for the stairs without another word. Once he was gone, Mrs. Chen rounded on Caleb. "This is about that little girl, isn't it? The one you found." "Yes." "What did you get yourself into?" Something bigger than I understood, something I can't walk away from. He met her eyes. I'm sorry. I know this isn't fair to you, but I need to know Mason's safe while I figure this out. Where are you taking him? Better if you don't know. That way when they come asking, you can't tell them anything. When they come, her voice rose. Caleb, this is insane. If someone's threatening you, you go to the police. You don't run. The police can't help with this, trust me. Then what can I do? Caleb pulled out his phone and opened his contacts. He scrolled to a name he hadn't called in 2 years. Jake Morrison, Army buddy. Lived in Wyoming now, somewhere in the mountains, completely off the grid. The kind of guy who could disappear for months and no one would notice. If something happens to me, Caleb said, if I don't come back or you can't reach me, you call this number. His name is Jake. Tell him I need him to take care of Mason. He'll do it. No questions asked. Mrs. Chen's hands were shaking as she took the phone and copied down the number. You're scaring me. I'm scared too, but I'll be more scared if I do nothing and something happens to him because of me. Footsteps on the stairs. Mason appeared with his backpack, stuffed full and bulging. I got everything. Can we go now? Yeah, buddy, we can go. Caleb took the bag and slung it over his shoulder. He looked at Mrs. Chen. Thank you for everything. She pulled him into a hug, unexpected, fierce. You come back, you hear me? That boy needs his father. I will. He wasn't sure if it was the truth, but it was what she needed to hear. They drove north, away from town, away from highways, away from anywhere someone might look for them. Mason fell asleep in the passenger seat within 20 minutes, his head lolling against the window. Caleb drove with one eye on the road and one on the rear-view mirror, watching for headlights that stayed too close or followed too long. Nothing. Just empty road and darkness. His phone rang. He'd turned off location services and pulled the SIM card, but it still worked over Wi-Fi, and apparently they had it routed through something he didn't understand. Marcus Webb's number. Yeah. Where are you? Webb sounded tense. Driving. They got to you, didn't they? How did you know? Because Dr. Voss just called me. Someone broke into her apartment an hour ago. She wasn't there. She's been staying with her sister since we met, but they tore the place apart. Took her computer, her files, everything. Caleb's jaw tightened. Is she okay? Physically, yes. Mentally, she's a wreck. She wants to back out, says it's too dangerous. Can you blame her? No. But without her testimony, without her corroborating what's on that drive, the story falls apart. They'll call it fake, manufactured. They'll bury it and bury us along with it. Webb paused. I need you to convince her. She trusts you. She doesn't even know me. She knows you saved Emma. She knows you're willing to risk everything for this. That means something to her. Another pause. Please, Caleb, I can't do this without both of you. Caleb looked at Mason sleeping, thought about the phone call, the threat, the very real possibility that he was driving his son into danger instead of away from it. Where is she? Her sister's place, Missoula. I'll text you the address. I'll call her, but I'm not making any promises. That's all I'm asking. The call ended. 2 seconds later, a text came through with an address and a phone number. Caleb stared at it for a long moment before dialing. Dr. Voss answered on the first ring. Hello? It's Caleb Hayes. Webb said you want to back out. A long silence, then, They broke into my home, Mr. Hayes. They destroyed my life's work, and they left a note. It said next time I wouldn't be so lucky as to be gone when they came. I know, I got a call too. They threatened my son. Then you understand. You understand why I can't do this. I understand why you're scared. I'm scared too. But I also understand that if we back down, they win. Caroline dies for nothing. All those people being watched, being tracked, being treated like criminals even though they haven't done anything wrong, that continues forever. Is that what you want? Of course not, but I don't want to die either. Neither do I. But sometimes the right thing and the safe thing aren't the same thing. Caleb kept his voice gentle. You built Sentinel because you thought you could save lives. You tried to stop it when you realized it was being misused. You've been trying to do the right thing from the beginning. Don't stop now. You sound like Caroline, Voss's voice broke. She said the same thing. She said I had a responsibility to fix what I'd helped create. And now she's dead. She's dead because she was alone, because nobody backed her up, because the people who should have helped her were too scared or too complicit or too busy covering their asses to do the right thing. Caleb glanced at Mason, still asleep. We're not alone. You, me, Webb. We can do this together. We can make sure what happened to Caroline doesn't happen to anyone else. Silence on the other end. Caleb could hear her breathing, could hear the fear and the doubt and the exhaustion. If I do this, Voss said finally, if I go on record, they'll destroy me. My career, my reputation, everything I've worked for. Probably, but you'll be able to look yourself in the mirror. That's worth something. Another long pause. Then, all right, I'll do it. But Mr. Hayes, if we're doing this, we do it right. No half measures. We expose everything, every person involved, every agency that looked the other way, every politician who took money to keep quiet, all of it. Agreed. And we protect Emma. Whatever happens, that little girl doesn't become collateral damage. She's been through enough. I'll make sure of it. Then I'm in. She took a shaky breath. When do we move? Webb said he needs 48 hours. That puts us at Friday morning. Friday the 13th, Voss said with a bitter laugh. How appropriate. They ended the call. Caleb drove for another hour before pulling into a gas station to refuel and use the bathroom. Mason woke up when the truck stopped, groggy and disoriented. Where are we? Middle of nowhere. Need to pee? Yeah. They went inside together. The station was old and fluorescent and empty, except for a clerk who looked half asleep behind bulletproof glass. Caleb bought water and gas station sandwiches and a chocolate bar for Mason. When they got back to the truck, he pulled out his laptop and plugged in the USB drive one more time. He needed to make a copy. Multiple copies. Insurance in case something happened to the original. He dug through the glove compartment and found 2 blank USB drives he'd bought months ago for backing up customer files at the garage. He copied everything from Caroline's drive onto both of them, then hid one under the spare tire in the truck bed and put the other in the inside pocket of his coat. The original went into a plastic bag, then into a metal coffee tin he found in the trash. He buried it in the dirt behind the gas station, next to a fence post, memorizing the location. If anyone came for him, if they searched the truck or searched him, they'd find copies. But they wouldn't find the original. What are you doing, Dad? Caleb turned. Mason stood a few feet away, watching him with curious eyes. Just hiding something important. Is it treasure? Sort of. Can I see? Not this time, buddy. This treasure's got to stay secret. Mason accepted this without argument. That was the thing about kids. They trusted you to know what you were doing even when you had no idea. They got back in the truck and kept driving, north and west, into the mountains, toward the cabin Webb had mentioned. The roads got narrower, the trees got thicker. Cell service disappeared completely. By the time dawn started breaking over the peaks, they were somewhere that didn't appear on maps, in a part of Montana that time had forgotten. The cabin sat in a clearing surrounded by pines. Small, rundown. Solar panels on the roof and a creek running behind it. Webb's truck was already there, parked next to an old Jeep that probably belonged to Voss. Caleb parked and carried Mason inside. The kid was asleep again, exhausted from the overnight drive. Inside, the cabin was basic but functional. 2 bedrooms, a wood stove, a table with Webb's laptop open and papers scattered everywhere. Webb himself sat hunched over the keyboard, typing furiously. He looked up when Caleb entered. You made it. Barely. Is Voss here? Asleep in the back room. Got here around 4 a.m. Webb saved his work and closed the laptop. I've got most of the story drafted. Just need to verify a few more sources, and we're good to go. Caleb laid Mason down on the couch and covered him with a blanket. Then he sat across from Webb. When this goes live, what happens? Chaos. The story breaks. Every major outlet picks it up. Sabrina gets subpoenaed. The DOD launches an investigation. Congress holds hearings. Maybe criminal charges. Maybe not. Depends on how good her lawyers are. And us? Webb met his eyes. We become targets. Sabrina's people will try to discredit us, say we fabricated evidence, say we're conspiracy theorists. The government will claim national security and try to suppress the story. And whoever hired those men to kill Caroline will probably try to finish what they started. So we're screwed. Pretty much, but we'll be alive, and the truth will be out there. That's something. Caleb thought about that, about the trade-off, safety for truth, comfort for justice. It didn't seem like a fair exchange, but life rarely was. What about Emma? He asked. If this comes out, she'll be at the center of it. Every reporter in the country will want to interview the little girl whose nanny died exposing Project Sentinel. I've thought about that. We don't mention her by name in the story. We keep her involvement vague. A source close to the Vale family. That's it. They'll figure it out anyway. Probably. But by then the focus will be on Sabrina and the program itself. Emma will just be a footnote. Caleb wasn't convinced, but he didn't have a better solution. He stood and walked to the window. Outside, the sun was rising over the mountains, painting the snow gold and pink. Beautiful. Peaceful. The kind of morning that made you think maybe the world wasn't such a terrible place. His phone buzzed. One bar of service, somehow catching a signal from a tower miles away. A text from an unknown number. Mile marker 52. 8 a.m. Don't be late. The deadline. The threat. The choice he'd been putting off. He checked the time. 7:15. 45 minutes to decide if he was going to show up and hand over the drive or ignore them and see what happened. Webb was watching him. The people who called you, they give you a time limit? 8 a.m. There's a rest stop on Highway 87. They want me to leave the drive there. And if you don't? They didn't specify, but the implication was pretty clear. Webb chewed his lip. What are you going to do? I don't know yet. If you give it to them, this is over. Everything Caroline died for, everything we've been working toward, it's gone. I know. But if you don't, they might come after Mason. I know that too. Caleb turned away from the window. He looked at his son sleeping on the couch, looked at Webb with his laptop and his righteous conviction, looked at the USB drive in his pocket, small and black and heavy, with the weight of other people's secrets. Then he looked at his watch, 7:20. He made his decision. I'm going to the rest stop, he said, but I'm not giving them the drive. Webb frowned. Then what's the point? The point is to look them in the eye, see who they are, figure out if they're serious about the threat or just trying to scare me. That's insane. Maybe. But I need to know what we're up against. If they're willing to kill over this, I need to see it for myself. And if they grab you, if they don't just threaten but actually do something, Caleb pulled out one of the copied USB drives and handed it to Webb. Then you publish anyway. Don't wait. Don't hesitate. Just get the story out there and make sure it counts. Webb took the drive like it might explode. Caleb, 48 hours, you said, Friday morning. If I'm not back by then, you go without me. You and Voss. Get the story out and don't look back. You're coming back. Probably, but just in case. Caleb grabbed his coat and keys. Keep an eye on Mason. If he wakes up, tell him I went to get breakfast. Where are you really going? To find out if I'm as brave as I think I am. The drive back to Highway 87 took 30 minutes. Caleb pushed the truck harder than he should have, engine screaming on the mountain roads, tires sliding on patches of ice. He got there at 7:58. 2 minutes to spare. The rest stop was one of those generic pull-offs with a parking lot, a couple of picnic tables, and a bathroom that probably hadn't been cleaned since the Reagan administration. Empty at this hour, no cars, no people, just wind and snow and the ghost of a deadline. Caleb parked and waited. 8 a.m. came and went. Nothing happened. 8:05, still nothing. Maybe they weren't coming. Maybe it had been a bluff all along. Just words meant to scare him into compliance. Then at 8:07, a black SUV pulled into the lot. Tinted windows, out-of-state plates. It parked 50 feet away, engine running, exhaust pluming white in the cold air. Caleb got out of his truck. The SUV's door opened. A man stepped out, mid-40s, athletic build, expensive suit under an expensive coat. The kind of guy who looked like he'd never done manual labor in his life, but could probably kill you 6 different ways without breaking a sweat. He walked toward Caleb with the easy confidence of someone who knew he held all the cards. "Mr. Hayes." "That's me." "You're late. By 7 minutes. Sue me." The man almost smiled. "Do you have what we want?" "Depends. Who's we?" "People who'd prefer to remain anonymous." "Not good enough. I want a name." "You're not in a position to make demands." "Then we don't have anything to talk about." Caleb turned to leave. "Your son is 6 years old, Mason Hayes, born July 14th, attends Coldwater Elementary. His favorite color is blue. He wants to be a paleontologist when he grows up." The man's voice was flat, emotionless. "Would be a shame if something happened to him." Caleb stopped. Every muscle in his body tensed. It took everything he had not to turn around and throw a punch. "You already made that threat," he said without turning. "I didn't believe you then either." "Then you're a fool." "Maybe. But I'm a fool who knows you're bluffing." Caleb turned around. "If you were going to hurt him, you would have done it already. You wouldn't waste time threatening me. You'd just act. The fact that you're here talking to me, trying to negotiate, that tells me you can't just take what you want. You need me to give it to you." The man's expression didn't change, but something flickered in his eyes. Irritation, maybe, or grudging respect. "You're smarter than you look." "I get that a lot. Now tell me who sent you." "I told you, anonymous parties." "Sabrina Vale?" "Among others." "The Department of Defense?" The man said nothing, which was an answer in itself. "So it's both," Caleb said slowly. "Vale Technologies and the government, working together to keep Project Sentinel quiet." "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't. Just like you don't know that Caroline Mitchell was murdered because she found evidence of illegal surveillance. Just like you don't know that Emma Vale was almost killed to keep her quiet. That child was never in danger from us." "No, just from your friends who put a bullet in her nanny's head." The man's jaw tightened. "That was an unfortunate necessity. Miss Mitchell refused to be reasonable. She was warned multiple times to destroy the files and keep her mouth shut. She chose not to listen." "So you killed her." "I didn't kill anyone. I'm just here to clean up the mess." He took a step closer. "Give me the drive, Mr. Hayes. Walk away. Go back to your garage and your kid and your normal life. Forget any of this ever happened." "And if I don't?" "Then your life stops being normal. Maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually. We're patient, and we have long memories." Caleb felt the weight of the USB drive in his pocket. The copy, not the original, the one that wouldn't matter if they took it because there were 2 more hidden away. He could hand it over right now. End this, go home, pretend everything was fine. But then he thought about Caroline Mitchell bleeding out in a rental house, about Emma standing barefoot in a blizzard, about Dr. Voss's shaking hands and Marcus Webb's desperate conviction, and all the people being watched without their knowledge or consent. "No," he said. The man's expression hardened. "No? I'm not giving you the drive. I'm not walking away. And I'm not forgetting any of this happened." "Then you're signing your own death warrant." "Maybe. But at least I'll die knowing I did the right thing." For a long moment, they just stared at each other. 2 men standing in a parking lot on a cold morning, the world reduced to the space between them and the choice that would define everything that came next. Then the man pulled out his phone and made a call. "It's me. He's refusing." A pause. "Yes, I'm sure." "Understood." He hung up and looked at Caleb. "You have 24 hours to reconsider. After that, all bets are off." "I won't change my mind. We'll see." The man walked back to the SUV, got in, and drove away. Caleb stood there watching until the vehicle disappeared, his heart hammering in his chest, adrenaline making his hands shake. He'd just declared war on people who could erase him from existence, and he had no idea what came next. He got back in the truck and drove to the cabin. By the time he arrived, Mason was awake and eating cereal at the table while Dr. Voss read him a book about dinosaurs. Webb looked up when Caleb walked in. "What happened?" "They came. I told them no." And now we have 24 hours before they make good on their threats." Voss set down the book. Her face was pale. 24 hours? That's not enough time. We need at least 2 days to... Then we work faster. Caleb sat down and pulled out the laptop. What do you need from me? Webb handed him a list. These sources. I need you to call them. Get them on record confirming what's on the drive. Without corroboration, it's just files on a flash drive. Could be fabricated. Could be anything. Who are they? Former Vale Technologies employees, people who worked on Sentinel. Dr. Voss gave me their names. Most of them won't talk because they signed NDAs, but maybe if they know the story's coming out anyway, they'll cooperate. Caleb looked at the list. 8 names. 8 people who'd been part of building the surveillance state and now had to decide if they were willing to admit it. He picked up the phone and started dialing. The first 3 calls went straight to voicemail. The 4th was answered by a woman who hung up the second he mentioned Project Sentinel. The 5th told him to go to hell. The 6th said he'd talk, but only off the record, which wasn't helpful. The 7th call was different. Hello? A man's voice, young, nervous. Is this David Chen? Who's asking? My name is Caleb Hayes. I'm working with Dr. Ellen Voss on a story about Project Sentinel. She said you might be willing to talk. His silence, then, Dr. Voss sent you? Yes. Is she okay? I heard someone broke into her place. She's fine. She's here with me. Where's here? Somewhere safe. Can you talk? More silence. Caleb could hear breathing on the other end, could hear the internal debate happening. What do you want to know? Chen said finally. Everything. How Sentinel works. Who authorized the domestic deployment. What data it collects. All of it. If I tell you, I'll lose my job. Maybe worse. If you don't tell me, this program keeps running, keeps violating people's rights, keeps... I know what it does, Chen interrupted. I wrote half the code. I know exactly what it does. And I've been trying to sleep at night knowing I helped build it. A shaky breath. All right, I'll talk. But you have to promise me something. What? You have to promise this matters. That exposing it actually changes something. Because if I'm throwing my career away for nothing, if this just gets buried like everything else, I don't think I can live with that. Caleb thought about Caroline Mitchell, about Emma, about the choice he'd made in the parking lot an hour ago. It matters, he said. I promise you, it matters. Okay, then let me tell you about the surveillance state we built while nobody was paying attention. Chen talked for an hour. He walked Caleb through the technical architecture of Sentinel, how it integrated with existing camera systems in major cities, how it used facial recognition to identify individuals in real time, how it tracked movement patterns and predicted behavior and flagged people as potential threats based on algorithms that nobody fully understood. He confirmed that the program was active in 12 cities, confirmed that it operated without warrants or judicial oversight, confirmed that data was being collected on millions of Americans without their knowledge or consent, and he confirmed that people at the highest levels of government knew about it and approved it. Who specifically? Caleb asked. I don't have names. I'm just a programmer. But I know the DoD was involved. I know there were meetings with people from Homeland Security, from the FBI, from agencies I'd never even heard of. Chen paused. This wasn't some rogue operation. This was policy, sanctioned at the very top. Will you go on record with this? Yes, but I want immunity. I want protection. I'm not going to prison because I did what my bosses told me to do. I can't promise that, but I can promise the truth gets out. That's the best I can offer. Then I guess it'll have to be enough. They ended the call. Caleb looked at Webb. That's 4 sources on record now, including Chen and Voss. Is that enough? It's enough. Webb was already typing, incorporating Chen's testimony into the story. We publish tomorrow morning, 6 a.m. That gives us time to prep the editors, fact-check everything one more time, and get ahead of the spin. What about protection? For Voss, for Chen, for everyone who helped us. I've got a lawyer standing by. Soon as the story goes live, she files motions for whistleblower protection. It's not perfect, but it's something. Dr. Voss spoke up from the couch. What about Emma? What happens to her when this comes out? Sabrina said she was calling a press conference, Caleb said. She said she was going to tell the truth. If she actually does that, Emma might be okay. Sabrina takes the fall, accepts responsibility, and the kid stays out of it. And if she doesn't? Then Emma becomes the poster child for government overreach, and we all feel terrible about it. Voss flinched. That's not good enough. I know, but it's all we've got. The day crawled by, Webb typed. Voss made calls to her lawyer. Mason played with Legos on the floor, oblivious to the tension in the room. And Caleb sat by the window, watching the road, waiting for the SUV to return with more threats or more men or whatever came next. But nothing came. The sun set. The temperature dropped. Webb ordered pizza from a place 30 miles away and had it delivered to a gas station down the mountain, then drove to pick it up. They ate in silence, the weight of tomorrow pressing down on all of them. At midnight, Webb finished the story. He read it aloud, all 6,000 words of it, laying out the entire conspiracy in clear, precise language. The program, the violations, the cover-ups, the deaths. By the time he finished, Voss was crying and Caleb felt hollowed out. It's good, Caleb said. It's really good. It's the truth. Webb saved the file and sent it to his editor. Now we wait. They didn't have to wait long. At 2 a.m., Caleb's phone rang. He'd plugged it in to charge and somehow it had caught a signal again. He answered without looking at the number. Hello? Mr. Hayes. It was the man from the parking lot. I'm calling with a final offer. I already told you the answer's no. You haven't heard the offer yet. $5 million, cash, offshore account. You give us the drive, you disappear, you never speak about any of this again. Your son grows up rich. You never have to work another day in your life. Caleb almost laughed. You think I can be bought? Everyone can be bought. It's just a matter of price. Then you don't know me very well. I know you work at a garage making $40,000 a year. I know you're behind on your mortgage. I know you've got $1,700 in your checking account and a maxed out credit card. I know $5 million would change your life. It would, but some things matter more than money. Like what? Pride? Principle? The man's voice dripped contempt. Those things don't put food on the table. They don't pay for college. They don't keep you warm when you're old and alone. No, but they let you sleep at night. The man sighed. This is your last chance, Mr. Hayes. Take the money. Protect your son. Live a good life. The alternative is, I know what the alternative is, and I choose it anyway. Then you're a fool, and fools die young. The line went dead. Caleb set down the phone. His hands were shaking again, but this time it wasn't fear. It was something else. Something that felt almost like relief. He'd made his choice. For better or worse, there was no going back now. Webb was watching him. That sounded ominous. They offered me $5 million to walk away. And you said no. I said no. You're either the bravest person I've ever met or the stupidest. Probably both. Caleb stood and stretched. Every muscle ached. He hadn't slept in almost 2 days. When does the story go live? 6 hours. Give or take. Then I'm going to get some sleep. Wake me if the world ends. He lay down on the floor next to the couch, where Mason was sleeping, and closed his eyes. He didn't expect to actually sleep, but exhaustion pulled him under in seconds. He dreamed of snow and blood and a little girl standing in the road asking why nobody stopped. When he woke, it was to the sound of Webb shouting, "It's live! The story's live!" Caleb sat up, disoriented. Pale light filtered through the windows. Morning. He checked his phone. 6:03 a.m. Webb had his laptop open, refreshing the page over and over. Look at this. Look at the numbers. 20,000 views already. 30,000, 40. It's going viral. Voss was crying again, but this time from relief. It's really out there. It's really happening. Caleb walked to the window and looked outside. The world looked the same as it had yesterday. Snow, trees, mountains, but somehow everything had changed. The truth was out there now, exposed, undeniable. His phone started ringing. Unknown numbers. Reporters, probably. He ignored them. Let them call Webb. This was his story to tell. Then a call came through from a number he recognized. Sabrina Vale. He answered. You actually did it. Her voice was hollow, empty. You actually published. I said I would. I know, I just didn't think. She trailed off. I called the press conference. It's in an hour. I'm going to confirm everything, take full responsibility, resign from the company. What about Emma? She's with my parents, somewhere safe, somewhere the cameras can't find her. A long pause. Thank you, Caleb, for protecting her, for doing what I should have done a long time ago. I didn't do it for you. I know you did it for Caroline and for everyone who deserves the truth. She took a shaky breath. Be careful. The people who came after Caroline, they're still out there, and they're not going to be happy about this. I know. Then watch your back and keep that little boy close. She hung up. Caleb stood there holding the phone, watching the sun rise over the mountains, and wondered what came next. The story was out. The truth was exposed. But the fight wasn't over. If anything, it was just beginning. His phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. Well done. But this isn't over, not by a long shot. He showed it to Webb. The journalist went pale. That's him, the guy from the parking lot. Yeah. What do we do? Caleb looked at Mason, still sleeping peacefully on the couch. Looked at Voss, who'd risked everything to do the right thing. Looked at Webb, who'd published a story that would probably end his career or make it, depending on how the next few days went. We survive, what Caleb said. We keep our heads down. We wait for the dust to settle. And we hope that telling the truth was worth what it's going to cost. It wasn't a perfect answer, but it was the only one he had. The story detonated across the internet like a bomb. By noon, every major news outlet had picked it up. Cable networks ran it on a loop. Social media exploded with outrage and disbelief and conspiracy theories that made the actual conspiracy look tame by comparison. Project Sentinel became the only thing anyone could talk about. Caleb watched it unfold from the cabin, scrolling through headlines on Webb's laptop while Mason built elaborate dinosaur battles on the floor. The kid had no idea his father had just helped expose one of the biggest surveillance scandals in American history. To Mason, this was just another day, another adventure with Dad in the mountains. Caleb envied that ignorance. They're calling for congressional hearings, Webb said from across the room. He had 3 phones going at once, fielding calls from editors and lawyers and reporters who wanted follow-up interviews. Senate Intelligence Committee, House Oversight, the works. What about criminal charges? Voss asked. She sat by the window, staring out at the snow, like she expected armed men to come charging through the trees any second. Too early to say. DOJ is reviewing the evidence. FBI is opening an investigation. But these things take time. Webb switched phones. Yeah, this is Marcus Webb. No, I can't reveal my sources. That's not how this works. Caleb's phone rang for the 100th time. Another unknown number. He'd stopped answering hours ago. But this time something made him look at the screen. The area code was local. Montana. He answered. Mr. Hayes? A woman's voice. Professional. Cautious. This is Agent Sarah Vickers. We spoke at the hospital. I remember. I need to meet with you, today. It's urgent. I'm not interested in talking to the FBI right now. This isn't about the investigation. This is about keeping you alive. Her tone shifted, less professional, more human. Please, just hear me out. Caleb looked at Mason, at Webb, at Voss. Fine, but not alone. I'm bringing people with me. That's acceptable. There's a diner in Helena. Murphy's. Do you know it? I'll find it. 2 hours. Come alone or with friends, I don't care. But come unarmed and make sure you're not followed. The line went dead. Webb looked up. Who was that? FBI. Wants to meet. That's a trap. Maybe. Or maybe she actually wants to help. Caleb stood and grabbed his coat. Either way, I'm going. You two stay here with Mason. Like hell, Voss said. If you're walking into a trap, you're not doing it alone. Someone needs to watch him. I'll stay. Webb gestured at his phones. I've got enough to keep me busy. You two go. But Caleb, be careful. The FBI isn't your friend right now. The FBI's never been my friend. They left Mason with strict instructions to listen to Mr. Webb and not open the door for anyone. The kid nodded seriously, already back to his dinosaurs. Caleb hated leaving him, but bringing a 6-year-old to a meeting with federal agents seemed like worse parenting. The drive to Helena took 90 minutes. Voss was quiet most of the way, staring out the window at the landscape rolling past. Finally, she spoke. "Do you think it was worth it?" "What?" "All of this, the risk, the danger, Caroline's death. Do you think exposing Sentinel was worth the cost?" Caleb thought about it, really thought about it. "I don't know. Ask me again when we see if anything actually changes. That's not an answer. It's the only one I've got." Murphy's Diner was a step up from Betty's. Cleaner, brighter. The kind of place where families ate breakfast after church and old men argued about politics over terrible coffee. Agent Vickers sat in a back booth, alone, nursing a cup of something that steamed. She looked different than she had at the hospital. Tired. Worried. Like someone who'd had a very bad week and knew it was about to get worse. Caleb and Voss slid into the booth across from her. Vickers looked at Voss with recognition. "Dr. Voss, I was hoping you'd come. You know who I am?" "I know everything about you. Your work on Sentinel, your resignation, your attempts to blow the whistle." Vickers leaned forward. "I also know you've been trying to do the right thing for months and getting stonewalled at every turn." "Then why didn't you help me?" "Because I didn't have the authority. Project Sentinel was classified above my pay grade. I knew it existed, but I didn't know what it did or how far it had gone." She looked at Caleb. "Until your story broke this morning, now I know, and now I'm pissed." "Join the club," Caleb said. Vickers pulled out a folder and slid it across the table. "This is what I came to show you. It's the FBI's file on Caroline Mitchell, everything we found during the investigation." Caleb opened it. Photos of the rental house, the crime scene, Caroline's body, covered by a tarp. He forced himself to look, to really see what had been done to her. The execution-style wound, the professional precision of it. "We were told to call it a murder-suicide," Vickers said quietly. "Orders came down from D.C., close the case. Don't ask questions, move on. But it never sat right with me. Caroline Mitchell wasn't a kidnapper, she was a whistleblower, and someone killed her for it." "Who gave the orders?" Voss asked. "I don't know. Above my boss. Above his boss. Somewhere in the chain of command, someone decided this case needed to disappear." Vickers tapped the folder. "But I made copies, everything, and now that your story's out, I'm going to make sure the truth comes out about Caroline too. She deserves that much." Caleb felt something loosen in his chest. Relief, maybe. Or vindication. "Why are you telling us this?" "Because you're in danger, both of you. And so is anyone else involved in exposing Sentinel." Vickers pulled out another document. "This is a threat assessment from our field office. It says there's credible intelligence that individuals connected to Project Sentinel may attempt to silence witnesses before congressional hearings begin." "Individuals," Caleb repeated. "You mean hitmen?" "I mean people with resources and motivation to make problems disappear. The same people who killed Caroline. The same people who've been calling you with threats. Can you protect us?" "I can try. Protective custody, safe houses, federal marshals. But it's not foolproof, and it only lasts until the hearings are over. After that, you're on your own." Caleb looked at Voss. She looked back at him. They were thinking the same thing. Protective custody meant giving up their freedom, meant hiding, meant living in fear for however long it took for the government to decide they were safe. "What's the alternative?" Voss asked. "You stay visible, stay public, make yourselves too famous to kill without massive blowback." Vickers shrugged. "It's not a guarantee, but people are less likely to murder someone the whole country knows about." "Unless they make it look like an accident," Caleb said. "Unless that." They sat in silence for a moment. The diner hummed with normal life around them. Waitresses taking orders, families eating pancakes. People whose biggest problem was whether to get bacon or sausage with their eggs. Caleb missed that simplicity. Missed the days when his biggest worry was paying the water bill on time. "There's something else," Vickers said. "Sabrina Vale's press conference this morning. Did you watch it?" "No. What happened?" She confessed. Everything. Confirmed the existence of Project Sentinel. admitted it was being used domestically without warrants, took full responsibility and resigned as CEO effective immediately. Vickers paused. She also announced she's cooperating with federal investigators, turning over all files, all communications, all evidence of who authorized the program and who knew about the domestic deployment. She's actually doing it, Voss whispered. She's actually telling the truth. Looks that way. Her lawyers are having a collective heart attack, but she doesn't seem to care. It's like she wants to burn it all down. Vickers closed the folder. Which means the people who built Sentinel alongside her are panicking, and panicked people do stupid things. Like kill witnesses, Caleb said. Like kill witnesses. So what do we do? Vickers met his eyes. You survive. You testify when Congress calls you. You make sure Caroline Mitchell's death meant something, and you hope the system actually works for once. It wasn't much of a plan, but it was better than nothing. They left the diner and drove back to the cabin in silence. When they arrived, Marcus Webb met them at the door with a strange expression on his face. What happened? Caleb asked. You need to see this. Webb pulled up a video on his laptop. It was a news broadcast from Seattle. A reporter stood outside a federal courthouse. Dramatic turn in the Project Sentinel scandal as multiple high-ranking officials at the Department of Defense have resigned today, citing health reasons. Sources close to the investigation say these resignations are part of a broader effort to distance the Pentagon from the controversial surveillance program. Meanwhile, protests have erupted in all 12 cities where Sentinel was operational, with thousands demanding accountability and reforms. Webb paused the video. It's working. People are actually being held accountable. For now, Voss said. But it's a start. Caleb's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. His stomach tightened, but when he opened it, the message was different from the threats he'd been getting. It was a photo. Emma Vale, smiling at a playground, holding Captain the Bear. And underneath, thank you for saving me. Love, Emma. His throat tightened. He showed the photo to Voss. She smiled through tears. She's okay, Voss said. That's what matters. Emma's okay. Yeah, Caleb said quietly. She's okay. The next 3 weeks were chaos. Congressional hearings, grand jury testimony, media appearances. Caleb told his story so many times it started to feel like someone else's life. The soldier who found a girl in a blizzard, the mechanic who exposed a surveillance state, the single father who risked everything for the truth. People called him a hero. He hated that. Heroes were supposed to feel good about what they'd done, supposed to be certain they'd made the right choice. Caleb felt neither of those things. He felt tired, scared, and deeply aware that Caroline Mitchell was still dead and nothing would bring her back. But slowly, things changed. Congress passed emergency legislation banning warrantless surveillance using AI systems. The DOJ filed criminal charges against 3 Vale Technologies executives and 2 Pentagon officials. The company itself entered bankruptcy proceedings, its stock price having collapsed to nothing. Sabrina Vale pled guilty to conspiracy and violation of civil rights. She was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. No mansion, no private jets, just a cell and the weight of what she'd built. Caleb watched her sentencing on TV from his living room. Mason was at school. The house was quiet. When the judge read the sentence, Sabrina didn't react, just nodded once and let the marshals lead her away. His phone rang. Dr. Voss. Did you watch? She asked. Yeah. How do you feel? I don't know. Empty maybe, like we won, but it doesn't feel like winning. Because it's not, Voss said. It's just damage control. We stopped one program, but there will be others. There always are. People in power will always want more power, and they'll always find new ways to take it. So what was the point? The point is, we pushed back. We said no. We made it harder for the next person who tries to build something like Sentinel. That's not nothing, Caleb. That matters. He wanted to believe her. Wanted to think Caroline's death and the last month of hell had actually changed something. But the cynical part of him, the part that had seen too much war and too much corruption, that part knew the truth. The system was broken. One conviction wouldn't fix it. I need to go, he said. Mason's getting home soon. Caleb, take care of yourself. And that boy, you've done enough. Let someone else fight the next battle. After they hung up, Caleb sat in the quiet house and thought about that. Let someone else fight. It sounded good. Simple. But he'd learned something over the past month. Learned that most people won't fight. Won't risk their comfortable lives to stand up for what's right. They'll complain. They'll share angry posts on social media. But when it comes time to actually do something, to actually sacrifice, they'll walk away. Caroline Mitchell hadn't walked away. She'd given everything to protect a little girl and expose a truth that needed exposing. And in the end, she died alone in a rental house while the people who should have helped her looked the other way. Caleb didn't want to be the kind of person who looked away, but he also didn't want to be the kind of father who got himself killed chasing justice and left his son alone. There had to be a balance, had to be a way to do the right thing without destroying your life in the process. The front door opened. Mason burst in, backpack bouncing, talking a mile a minute about something that happened at recess. Caleb pulled him into a hug and held on longer than necessary. "Dad, you're squishing me," Mason protested. "Sorry, just missed you. I was only gone for 6 hours." "I know." They made dinner together, spaghetti, Mason's favorite. Afterward, they watched a documentary about dinosaurs and argued about whether a T-Rex could actually beat a Triceratops in a fight. Normal stuff. Good stuff. The kind of evening Caleb would have taken for granted 6 weeks ago. After Mason went to bed, Caleb stepped outside. The night was clear and cold. Stars scattered across the sky like someone had spilled diamonds. He thought about Emma standing in the snow, about the choice he'd made to stop, about everything that had cascaded from that one decision. His phone buzzed. A news alert. The headline made him smile. Vale Technologies Sentinel technology to be permanently dismantled. Independent Oversight Committee appointed. It was over. Really over. Or maybe it was just the beginning. Maybe years from now, someone would try again. Build another system. Find another way to watch and control and justify it with promises of safety. And maybe Caleb would be too old or too tired or too smart to fight it. But for now, tonight, he could stand in his yard and look at the stars and know he'd done something that mattered. He'd stopped when he could have driven on. He'd fought when he could have surrendered. He'd chosen truth over safety. And somehow, despite everything, he and Mason had survived. His phone rang one last time. Unknown number. He answered, expecting another threat or another reporter. "Mr. Hayes?" A young woman's voice, soft, nervous. "Yeah?" "This is Emma Vale." Caleb nearly dropped the phone. "Emma? How did you—" "I found your number in my mom's phone. I wasn't supposed to call, but I wanted to say thank you for saving me, for stopping that night." "You don't have to thank me, kiddo." "Yes, I do. Miss Caroline saved me first. She got me out of the house and told me to run. But you're the one who made sure I got home." Her voice wavered. "I miss her, Miss Caroline. I know what she did was right, but I still miss her." "I know, that's okay. You're allowed to miss people even when they're gone. My mom says she's going to jail because of what happened, because of what she built. Your mom made some bad choices, but she's trying to fix them now. That takes courage. Will she be okay?" Caleb thought about how to answer that, how to explain complicated adult concepts to a kid who'd already been through too much. "I think so. It's going to be hard, but she's strong. And she's got you to come home to. That'll help." "Do you think Miss Caroline would be proud of us? Of what we did?" The question hit him hard, unexpected. He looked up at the stars and thought about Caroline Mitchell, about her fear and her courage and her desperate attempt to protect a child who wasn't even hers. "Yeah," he said quietly. "I think she'd be proud." "Good, because I drew you something, a picture. My grandma's going to mail it to you. It's of you and me and Captain from that night, so you don't forget." "I won't forget, Emma. I promise." "Okay, I have to go now, but thank you. Thank you for being the soldier man who saved me." The line went dead. Caleb stood there in the cold, phone in hand, and let himself cry. Not from sadness, not from fear, just from the sheer weight of it all. The burden of carrying someone else's truth, the responsibility of making choices that mattered. He'd wanted a simple life, a quiet life, fix trucks, raise his kid, stay out of trouble. But life didn't work that way. Sometimes trouble found you. Sometimes you had to choose between comfort and conscience. And sometimes doing the right thing cost everything you had, but it was still the right thing. The door opened behind him. Mason stood in the doorway in his dinosaur pajamas, rubbing his eyes. "Dad, why are you outside? It's cold." "Just thinking, bud." "About what?" Caleb walked back to the house and put his arm around his son's shoulders. "About how lucky I am. About how even when things are hard and scary and complicated, I've got you, and that makes everything else okay." "You're weird sometimes," Mason said. "I know." They went inside. Caleb locked the door and checked the windows and did all the small paranoid things he'd been doing since the threat started. But tonight they felt different. Less like fear, more like responsibility. He had someone to protect, someone who depended on him. That was worth being careful about. He tucked Mason into bed and read him a story about a knight who fought a dragon. Halfway through, the kid fell asleep. Caleb watched him for a while. The peaceful rise and fall of his chest, the complete trust that his father would keep him safe. That was the thing about kids. They believed in you even when you didn't believe in yourself. They thought you could fix anything, solve any problem, fight any monster. And sometimes, just sometimes, that belief was enough to make you try. Caleb thought about Caroline Mitchell one more time, about the choice she'd made to save Emma instead of herself, about the price she'd paid for doing what was right. He couldn't bring her back, couldn't change what had happened, but he could make sure her death meant something, could make sure Emma grew up knowing someone had loved her enough to die for her, could make sure the truth she'd died protecting actually changed the world. That would have to be enough. The package arrived 3 days later. Brown paper, no return address. Inside was a crayon drawing on construction paper. Emma had drawn it exactly as she'd described. 2 stick figures under a dark sky full of white snow, one tall, one small. Between them, a brown blob that was probably Captain. At the bottom, in shaky letters, "Thank you for saving me. Love, Emma." Caleb pinned it to the wall in his kitchen, right next to Mason's school artwork and the grocery list and all the other ordinary pieces of an ordinary life. Spring came slowly that year. The snow melted, the roads cleared, life returned to something resembling normal. Caleb went back to work at the garage. Mason finished first grade. Mrs. Chen kept bringing over casseroles and asking intrusive questions about whether Caleb was dating anyone. The media eventually moved on to the next scandal. The hearings wrapped up. The investigations continued. But for Caleb and Mason, things got quiet again. Peaceful. One warm afternoon in May, Caleb took Mason to the park. They flew a kite and ate ice cream and raced to the swings. Normal father-son stuff. The kind of day that made you forget the world was complicated and broken and full of people who did terrible things. Mason was on the monkey bars when Caleb's phone buzzed. A news alert. He almost didn't look. Had been trying to wean himself off the constant checking, but something made him glance at the screen. Final Project Sentinel server shut down. Program officially terminated. It was done. Really done. No more surveillance, no more watching, just 12 cities breathing easier knowing they weren't being tracked anymore. Caleb watched his son play, watched him fall and get up and laugh and try again, and he thought about all the children out there who would grow up without being watched by algorithms, who would make mistakes and learn and grow without some AI deciding they were threats. That was worth fighting for. Worth the sleepless nights and the threats and the fear. Worth everything. "Dad!" Mason called from the top of the jungle gym. "Watch this!" He jumped. Too far. Too high. Caleb's heart stopped. But the kid landed it perfectly, rolled, came up grinning. "Did you see? Did you see?" "I saw. That was awesome, bud. I wasn't even scared." "I know. You're brave." Mason ran off to try something even more dangerous, and Caleb let him. Because that was the thing about being a parent. You had to let them take risks, had to let them fall, had to trust they'd be okay even when you weren't sure. He thought about Emma, about whether she was at a playground somewhere, climbing and jumping and learning to be a kid again, about whether Sabrina sat in her cell and thought about the daughter she'd see in 3.5 years if she got out on good behavior. He thought about Dr. Voss, who'd taken a job teaching ethics at a university, about Marcus Webb, whose story about Sentinel had won him a Pulitzer, about Agent Vickers, who'd been promoted after her testimony helped convict 2 Pentagon officials, and he thought about Caroline Mitchell, about the woman who'd given everything to protect a child who wasn't hers, about how she died alone and scared and probably wondering if any of it mattered. It mattered, Caroline, Caleb thought. It all mattered. The sun was setting when they finally left the park. Mason talked the whole drive home, excited and happy and already planning their next adventure. Caleb listened and laughed and made plans he intended to keep. When they got home, there was a letter in the mailbox. Official looking, DOJ seal. Caleb opened it while Mason ran inside to find his Legos. It was a notification. The investigation into Project Sentinel was officially closed. All individuals who'd cooperated with investigators were being released from any further obligation. They were free to resume their normal lives. Free. Caleb folded the letter and stuck it in a drawer. He didn't need a piece of paper to tell him he was free. He'd made that choice the night he decided to publish Caroline's files. The night he chose truth over safety. Freedom wasn't about permission. It was about living with the choices you made and knowing you could sleep at night. He found Mason in the living room, already deep into constructing an elaborate space station. The kid looked up and smiled. Hey, Dad, can we have tacos for dinner? Yeah, buddy, we can have tacos. And can we watch that movie, the one with the robots? Sure. And tomorrow can we go fishing? If the weather's good. Cool. Mason went back to his Legos, perfectly satisfied with these simple promises. Caleb looked at Emma's drawing on the wall, at the crayon sky full of snow, at the 2 stick figures who'd found each other in the dark and survived. He'd spent weeks wondering if he'd made the right choice, if exposing Sentinel had been worth the cost, if Caroline's death had meant anything, if any of it mattered. But watching Mason build his space station, listening to him hum off-key while he worked, seeing him safe and happy and completely unaware of how close they'd both come to losing everything, that was the answer. It mattered because they'd stopped something evil, because they'd stood up when it would have been easier to sit down. Because somewhere out there, people were living freer lives because a nanny had refused to stay silent and a mechanic had refused to drive past a child standing in the snow. That had to be enough. And somehow, looking at his son smile, it was. Outside, the spring evening faded into night. Stars appeared. The same stars that had been there the night everything changed. The same stars that would be there tomorrow, and the next day, and all the days after. The world kept spinning. People kept living. And Caleb Hayes, former soldier and full-time father, made tacos and watched a movie and went to bed knowing he'd done something that mattered. Not because he was special, not because he was brave, but because when the moment came, when he saw someone who needed help, he stopped. And that choice, that simple human choice to give a damn about another person, that had made all the difference.